Welcome to the Sean Chandler Podcast, a place to talk movies and nerd culture way too much. Joining me today as our special guest is, once again, Austin Burke. Hey, Austin, anything interesting happened in the world since you were last on back in February?
We were talking about this before. It does not feel like February. I feel like this has been the strangest just sequence of events since we've last met. And it is crazy how much our plans have changed, how much our channels have changed. But you know what, Sean? I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to make it on. And speaking of big, gigantic, massive events, did anything interesting happen to you this morning?
Yeah. I may have gotten a little email saying I'm now a critic on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty sweet. I could not believe it. I thought it was fake at first. My wife, we were standing there looking at it, just like clicking stuff like, okay, is this good? And then I went and made sure. But man, I am so thankful. Not gonna lie, I had a little bit of tears going on right here. This is, you work really hard, and Sean, and Griffin, it's the grind. Yeah. It's all about the grind. And then once you finally get there, it feels good, man. But I'm thankful to everyone who's allowed this to happen to me and my wife for all of her support, man. It's pretty cool.
And congratulations on that. I know if you just stop and think about this, for all of you that are listening, all of you that are watching, we started doing this as just fans like you. All three of us were just people that were watching other YouTubers, reading Rotten Tomatoes on Collider.com. We are just like you. And so then as kind of these things have happened, whether getting on Rotten Tomatoes with Griffin, all these amazing interviews that he gets to do that, sometimes we have to delay the podcast because he just talked to someone that we've been watching, like Jason Isaac. We've been talking to this guy that's watching movies since Armageddon 22 years ago. It was mind-blowing to us, as you would think. Like, if that were to happen to you, we're still like, wow, this just happened, and this was one of those amazing days for Austin, to where this morning he realized he's going to be a part of that website that he's probably been reading for 15 years now. And that's just really cool that the way it worked out that happened this morning, so that we get to share that moment with you and kind of talk about it a little bit with my audience. Hey, Griffin.
Yeah. How's it going? Not much, same old. Yeah, I have nothing new to bring to the table other than I'm alive. So
very cool. That's awesome to be alive.
I do want congrats, man. Honestly, that's the biggest thing that you could be doing right now. Yeah, for sure. You, no, what was I going to say? Shoot, I missed it. Oh no, I was saying, so before you started, I love how every single time before you start one of these, you're always like, well, let me go yell at my kids real quick.
Yes.
It's just like you run away and you're just like, hey, everyone shut the heck up. I'm gonna record.
Right before the stream button, I have to wait. Like, I've got 3 kids. So one of them's a baby. She's going to scream no matter what. And the other 2 are trying to entertain the baby or drive each other crazy. So they're just running around screaming. And so right before I click the stream button for the podcast, I open, they're like, be quiet, everyone. Turn down
great.
the TV and go crazy.
Yeah.
And
he
hey, everybody.
Yeah. He literally, I know it's like he's perfectly calm and collected right now, but beforehand he literally says, "Excuse me for a moment, I'm going to go yell at my kids." And so it's just
so calm, and then he just blew up, and I'm like, "Oh my,
that's great,
Sean!" Yeah,
it's great, it's great. I love it.
For context, I am upstairs, and I was screaming down the stairwell across the entire house. It wasn't just that I'm a rage monster, which I am. I also just had to be loud enough that I could scream over their screaming, so that hopefully. Too much of that in the background. And then we started the stream, and I had the feed playing in one of my other tabs on my computer speakers at the beginning of this. So I was about to pause and be like, Austin, could you please turn down your audio? And I was like, wait, I'm the idiot that has audio playing right now.
That's funny.
Sean Chandler, the guy with many, many faults. If you're listening to the audio version of this, wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure to leave a rating, leave a review. It helps the podcast rank a little bit better so more people can discover it, more people can join in on the conversations. And if you are in the chat right now, if you send any super chats, we will respond to them. We will be reading it to kind of get your feedback on all of the events kind of going on in the world, all the subjects that we are covering. We did even have a super chat come in from Shawshank. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I do not know how to pronounce your name. It says, God bless you, Austin. Congrats. Very much appreciate for the super chat. And once again, I would totally agree. Congratulations, Austin. That is a huge accomplishment, making it onto Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And and it leads to all sorts of headaches, as we were discussing before the live stream started. The Rotten Tomatoes website is actually really old, outdated, and as soon as you're on there, you realize these probably aren't people running some deep conspiracy, because they can't even have an updated website. They're just getting money like crazy from Disney and Warner Brothers or whoever is supposedly paying them money. They are certainly not investing that money into the actual infrastructure of the website, because it is clunky as can be. Probably there's some faults in this conspiracy theory. With that said, we're going to dive into this. We had a bunch of different stuff to cover, obviously, because last week was both Comic-Con at home. It was Justice Con, Zack Snyder's little secret independent con for his Snyder Cut. And then also a ton of delays. Emmy nominations dropped. And then we've got Austin Burke on here, the king of Netflix original content. So we want to talk a little bit about that. And as throughout the month of July, we've kind of been talking about the best of the year thus far. So there you have it. Be sure to join in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking about stuff. But from my perspective, first piece that we're going to talk about today is the Justice Con and the big things that we learned about what was some little teases of what's going on with the Zack Snyder cut. And he did show us just a 17 little clip that expanded on a little single shot that was in the trailers that we saw. And we did get to see Black Suit Superman in these trailers. It's just a tease. He's smiley Superman. He's not brooding Superman. And throughout the course of the interview that Zack Snyder gave, he talked about what footage he will be using, confirmed kind of the length of runtime, that it's actually longer than we even thought it was. So before we dive into the specifics of all of that, what do you guys, Austin, what do you think about Black Suit Superman? Just even getting that little tease.
Yeah, it's cool. It really is. It's something I never expected to see from this universe after we got Justice League, because I said, "Oh, that's done. We're never going to see it." But it's nice to know that Zack Snyder is finally getting his version out there. Now, whether it is that comic accurate version that everyone I think wants to see, we'll have to find out. But hey, according to the visuals, he's wearing the black suit. That's comic book accurate enough as of now, and I think he looks pretty cool. And it's nice to see that smile. So we'll have to see how that plays out in the movie as well.
That's the thing that I really liked, is that we get the clip that gives you the black suit, but the fear was Black Suit Superman. He's brooding. He's the villain. He was really the main antagonist. And I'm sure there might be some of that in here, but that he feels kind of like what we saw at the end of Justice League, of a little bit more comic book accurate, the smiley Superman. While at the same time being in that black suit. I appreciate that we had a little bit of both of those in there. Griffin, what did you think about a little tease of Black Suit Superman?
It was awesome. It was cool to see that. I think of all the things he could have revealed at Justice Con for these fans who have been championing the film, supporting it, trying to get his vision realized. It's like a great first tease for them, because look, you drop this clip, and I even think he said it on the stream, but it's like you drop this clip at to the masses and what not at an event geared towards just like people other than Snyder Cut fans, and everyone's like, oh yeah, this is cool. That it's sure he's in a black suit. That doesn't really get me excited, but whatever. But if you drop it, at an event that is geared towards these hardcore Snyder Cut fans who they wanted to see this. They wanted to see Henry Cavill without a CGI'd mustache. They wanted to see Superman meet Alfred and all that stuff like that. That's enough to get to get a lot of those fans excited.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of the thing that makes this clip so perfect. It kind of touches on a couple of different things. One of them is Black Suit Superman, which I saw some conversations on Twitter, what's the big deal about Black Suit Superman? Cool, he's in a different color suit. Who cares? Or I don't like the aesthetic of it. Okay, I got you. Okay, but it's for people that understand the death of Superman, the reign of the Superman storylines, that it's this what the suit is, it's this restoration suit, and that they're paying attention to that. It just has these deep comic book ties. that obviously comic book movie fans really appreciate. It's something that if you're going to do the death and resurrection of Superman and you don't have black suit, it's weird. And that's why it was weird that we didn't get it before. So seeing it says like, okay, this is more of that epic that has more ties back to the source material. So that's one part of what makes it really cool. But then the other one is that we saw that tease in like one of the teases that they put in the trailer that was supposed to hook you and make you really excited is that there's this moment where Alfred's sitting there and then you see they do the Jurassic Park wiggling cup effect and then it doesn't show you what happened there and you're supposed to say, oh, Superman shows up to meet Alfred. They put that at the end of the trailer as a tease of something that would happen. And then it's not in the movie. And so it's even as like one of these shots that makes you go, oh, okay, like I see kind of what we're doing here. And in the interview with him, I don't know if this is the way that Zack Snyder always talks. He could be a little bit scattershot in how he addressed some things. And you could tell he was speaking to the Release the Snyder Cut fans. And so he was trying to say stuff without fully burning bridges. But he said some stuff like, yeah, when they were working on it, they would take some of my footage and they would put it in there without asking for my permission. But he wouldn't give the full context of that. But it felt a lot like, I think he was referring to the trailer because he was teasing this clip. And so like they put in clips that it seems like they didn't even intend to put in the movie into the trailers because they knew it would get people excited, which once again just goes back to the frustrations of everything that they were doing during that point in time. Just had a super chat come in here, and this will tie into the conversation about
I've seen this
about the interview. So it says Aish asks, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Hey, Sean, do you think there will be a Green Lantern cameo? And if there is, who do you think should play Hal Jordan? I think Armie Hammer is a good choice. So the reason that this is a great connection to what was going on, Zack Snyder was asked about this during the panel. They said, hey, can you tell us anything about Green Lantern? And during all of this, he answered questions about what footage he would use, about the runtime. He threw WB executives under the bus. And then they went, hey, can you tell us about the Green Lantern cameo or any plans for Green Lantern in this? Zipped his lips. He didn't say anything. So I would take that to mean that we're probably going to get something interesting. Who should play him? I wouldn't anticipate any sort of A-lister. I wouldn't anticipate like Hal Jordan shows up and it's Ryan Reynolds. I'm not expecting it to be Armie Hammer. I'm expecting footage of the Green Lantern Corps is what I would think. That would be my guess. But he was asked about this during the panel. Didn't say anything. Griffin, did you have something to expand on this one?
Yeah, no, this is definitely a rumor that I think I've seen floating around for a little bit, and I think part of it is true. I agree with you. I believe that we will see like the Green Lantern Corps in some capacity. I mean, we already saw other lanterns in that flashback where like Wonder Woman is telling the story of like Steppenwolf and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw other lanterns, and maybe there's like a tease of Hal Jordan, but I don't think you're going to actually see Hal Jordan team up with the Justice League in this movie. Green Lantern, all that stuff. There's no way. And then there's like the rumors that like, oh, Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern is coming back. That's absurd. That is not happening. Why would they bring back the person or the portrayal of Green Lantern that has been made fun of ad nauseum on the internet and in movies, in the Deadpool movies? Like, why would they do that? The movie was a colossal disappointment. It was a colossal flop. I don't even think maybe Ryan Reynolds would come back if it was like a joke thing, but I tonally, that doesn't even make sense for a Zack Snyder film. So just don't even consider that. That's never going to happen.
Griffin,
and don't. Wait, what?
Griffin, so you're a big fan of GoldenEye and Casino Royale.
Yeah.
It's been deeply disappointing when he was hired to direct a Green Lantern movie, and then it turns out to be what it was.
It wasn't. It was bad. Martin,
he's such a great director, and then it's like the comic book movie gives us is so disappointing. But I think that's the thing: is that the movie is it's the butt end of a lot of jokes, even for Ryan Reynolds. Even Ryan Reynolds in the movie makes himself the butt end of the joke. They would never do that. Yeah. For them to be like, hey, let's loop that into our shared or into our universe. directly. Let's make that's now ushered in as a Comic-Con DCEU movie. It wouldn't make any sense. Austin, what do you think on Green Lantern? Have you heard about this?
Well, Reynolds' Green Lantern is a meme. I mean, just the other day he was tweeting with Hugh Jackman, and Jackman said, "You're looking a little green, Ryan." And I'm just like, I mean, at this point, if he were to come back, I don't think people would take the movie seriously after that, because everyone would just say, "Hey, it's Deadpool back as the thing he's been making fun of for how many years now?" So I don't see that happening. If you're asking a dream casting, I'd love to see Idris Elba as Jon Stewart, but I don't think that's going to happen either. I'm with you, Sean. I think it's going to be a smaller actor, maybe even a no-name actor kind of taking over the mantle for this movie. And either way, I'm excited because Green Lantern is a really good character, just the movie wasn't.
Yeah, and like the off chance is they use this edition of Hal Jordan, whatever, Jon Stewart, as a tease for a movie that they actually greenlight. Mm-hmm. There's always the chance to do something like that, but that's not like, you don't bank on that. You're not like, oh, they'll bring Ryan Reynolds, or I think they're gonna. You don't bank on that. There's like always the off chance that they do something really cool, that we're in this alternate scenario where we get a second version of the movie, and therefore, based off where they are at now in developing other things, you can do something you wouldn't do it before. But odds that are happening really low. Had another super chat come in that tackles a bunch of other stuff that came out of this. Justice Con. So Tom Guevier, very sorry if I mispronounced your name. Your thoughts on Snyder saying he'd burn Justice League if it's not his footage, and Ray willing to be sued over Joss Whedon. So essentially, if you don't know what he's referring to, there's kind of two different subjects there. First one is, during this interview, he was asked, would he use any of Joss Whedon's footage? And he is quoted as saying, I would set the movie on fire before he would use a single frame that he didn't shoot. Like, he said that, like, overt, I will not use any footage that I did not film. Which throughout the rest of the interview, he also referred to what they released as a Frankenstein monster. When he was talking about the black suit situation, he said, they didn't want to do the black suit. Like, executives said that they thought it wouldn't match the tone that they wanted, and they really wanted it to make it like this big, funny, jokey movie. Which I'm like, we're talking about a dead Superman in the world in despair, and you want to make it a really funny, jokey movie. Like, we had two different visions. So he made a bunch of these statements that were just bold, like, wow, like, he is talking about WB in ways that I'm pretty shocked that he's allowed to do. What do you make of that, Austin?
Well, what this tells me is my worry at the beginning was that this was going to be the same movie, but longer, right? What this tells me is, even though obviously a lot of what he shot was in the original film, there's also a lot that we never saw, and maybe we saw in that first trailer. So this tells me that we may actually be getting a different movie with different events, and Cyborg, somewhat the lead of the original, but Cyborg really being the focus. And he said that later on. He's like, listen, I don't want to show Ray, because if I show Ray, he is the guy, right? He's the one I have to impress, because this is essentially his film. And I don't know if that was as evident to me in Joss Whedon's version. So this tells me that he does have his own movie, and maybe, we don't know, but maybe it could be significantly better than the other if it is that different. So that kind of gets me excited.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, well, in terms of like what Zach said, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it personally, because I mean, you've also taken into account the way Zack Snyder speaks. He's very hyperbolic. He's very blunt about it, and obviously he's going to say stuff that plays into the fan base of Justice Con, and they're all thinking this, and so he's just like, well, all right, I'll throw it out there. Look, it's not his movie, and I don't know why he would use any previously shot footage that wasn't his. Like, the whole notion of this is that he's putting together his version of this film. There are going to be reshoots. I do have information on that. There are going to be reshoots. hopefully they'll get the cast back together. I know that Ben Affleck there is supposedly just coming in to do work for that, and so I can assume the rest of the team will not just ADR but reshoots as well. And if you look at pictures of him recently, he's getting back into shape. He's got more gray in his beard, and so it like kind of makes sense. So, so I think so. So of course, like why? Yeah.
In the interview on JusticeCon, that was another thing where he seemed to quiet up a little bit. Like, hey, are they going to be in a reshoots? I can't comment on that.
Yeah.
And like he just threw executives under the bus. Well, I can't comment on that.
Yeah.
Which every time he did that, I went, "That's a yes." There's something to this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But I mean, it's one of those ones that, like, you know, if you ask him something ridiculous that's not going to happen, it's easy to say no. So if you're just not supposed to confirm something, that's where you're like, I can't comment on that. But you comment on everything else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's dropping stuff left and right on Vero. So it's like, if it's, I feel like you're right, whatever Zack Snyder like quiets up and he's like, well, I can't really talk about that until like, I don't know, DC Fandom or something like that. It's most likely going to happen. And I think when we get to Fandom, they'll drop the trailer. They'll bring the cast. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he did say they would drop the trailer, but they'll bring the cast back out maybe, or have them online or whatever. And it'll be this big thing. So people like, you know, who've been saying, oh, Batfleck's going to return. He is, but for reshoots on this film, we don't know, you know, past that if he's going to come back.
So, and to kind of tie all this together before we kind of move on to our next subject of the day, to take one more thing that he said in there. He said that two more things. He said at Fandom we'll know if it's a movie or if it's like a 6-episode miniseries. He said he doesn't know yet. He doesn't really care. He's kind of interested in both, but he will announce it at Fandom when there will be a tease. He did say that. Other final thing in here, he'd already said this to Grace Randolph, but he confirmed the current runtime is over 214 minutes. That he confirmed that. But put these two pieces of information together. Put them together. No Whedon footage. That movie's only 2 hours, and you cut out all the Whedon footage. You can watch it and be like, that was Whedon, that was Whedon, that was Whedon. You cut all of that out. So then even at that point in time, let's say it's 45 minutes of Whedon footage in there. So that's an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 14 minutes. You've got at least like 2 more hours of Zack Snyder Justice League. Based off these comments that all sound real, all sound legit, and they're doing more footage. So, I mean, that's a dramatically different movie. Just at face value, if he used Joss Whedon footage and just added to it, you're already getting over an hour, like an hour more of footage, like a lot more footage. But we're already cutting back then also all the Whedon footage. So this is going to be a wildly different beast with a different tone. And I love the fact that something like this exists. I always love these types of things when they happen. When you have two different directors, different visions, different kind of executives telling them what to do, and you get to see the same synopsis told 2 very different ways. That's cool to me.
Yeah.
So we had a super chat come in from Mike Media Inc. He says, "Is anyone sad to see Johnny Depp leave Pirates? I am. By the time this movie comes out, it'll have been 20 years since the original, so I'm not. He got a lot of movies. At 20 years, it's time to move on. So I really don't feel sad, and it sounds like they're going to be loosely tied. So I don't think he's totally done. If his marriage trouble, legal trouble, whatever that bad PR surrounding his marriage, that gets resolved, I'm sure he'll show up to be like, hey, another bird, and tip his hat or something like that, pass the baton. I'm not, I don't want another one starring him.
Yeah. So. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the movies, as they progressively went on, he became more and more of a caricature, and he became more and more of like a main character in the story. And it's like, you guys miss what was so great about Jack Sparrow in that first Pirates. He was like the seasoning. He was the spice that you put into an already really great story. And he didn't overdo it. Like Johnny Depp was nominated for an Oscar for that role. And if you watch that first Pirates, like, it makes sense. He transforms, but he's not a cartoon. So yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp as you, Sean.
That's what I was going to say too. Is I'm more sad with what they did with the character as they progressed. I loved. I mean, I'm a mess. I've dressed up as Jack Sparrow multiple times for Halloween. Like, I was obsessed. But the more movies that come out, the more I'm just like, I honestly don't really want to see any more pirates. But if they're going to do anything, it makes the most sense with what they're doing and just kind of rebooting it. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So I missed this in the Tom's question, commenting about Ray Fisher's comments. I don't really like to go in too much into accusations of kind of behind the scenes stuff. Kind of what I've said before and what I said on Twitter a little bit is that you have to put all of it into context. Joss Whedon had a terrible job to do, which is to say they filmed a movie they seemed to really like, and he was hired to come in and redo their movie with a different tone. So they're frustrated they're coming back, and he's kind of inherently in conflict with them. And so people who are stressed do bad things, do mean things, and they become less patient. People who are stressed because they're being brought back interpret things poorly. I say that only as context. I do not know what happened. I do not have specifics from him. There have been additional kind of things that have come out. So I don't really like to narrow down like, I definitely think this, until there's something more definitive. And if Joss Whedon is actually abusive, he's been working in Hollywood a long time. There'll be evidence of that, and more stories will kind of come out.
Yeah.
And truth will come to light. And if that's the case, then I don't want him working because he's an abusive person. If it's just one bad experience on one film that was obviously a nightmare, I interpret that very differently, because it's like this one guy out of the blues like, hey, this guy's terrible. And you go, there have been little murmurs and some things that he maybe isn't as pure of a person as we thought. This seems to be kind of, now he's mean and abusive on set, and then more things are trickling out. Spike from Buffy has said he grabbed my throat and slammed me against the wall because I was getting too popular. It seems like more things are coming out.
Yeah.
And so, and that was on the Michael Rosenbaum podcast. And this is like, okay, it seems like we're probably going to hear more stuff, but until we kind of have more confirmation, I wouldn't fully jump to conclusions, but I would be aware that there's a lot of this stuff out there. Austin, do you have much to chime in? I don't want to spend too much time on this.
No, I'm with you. I usually like to stay out until we know all of the details. Right. Eventually, we'll probably get more information. Until then, I'm just like, yeah, we'll just see.
Griffin, anything you want to chime in on that one?
No, not too much else. I mean, like you said, there kind of have been like little, hints that this is sort of a pattern for him throughout the years. And I think, speaking to friends who are avid followers and fans of Whedon's work dating back to his time in television, they've basically said, well, yeah, it's sort of like a pill we've had to swallow because the writing's sort of been on the wall throughout the years. So I think it was really only a matter of time before all this stuff started to come out. And now, with someone like Ray Fisher, who's obviously, I mean, you see interviews when he's looking at like Jason Momoa and Ben Affleck about like Joss Whedon taking over, and he's like, they look at him and he's like, well, we're just, we're not going to talk about that. So it's like everything is there, and just like you said, whenever it comes out, that'll be when we kind of talk about it. So.
Okay, we're going to jump on Comic-Con in just a second, but a couple of super chats come in, so I'm going to hit these real quick, and then we'll start talking about what did everybody think about Comic-Con. Let us know down below in the chat. Was it awesome, or was it awful? Did it provide a way for more people to join in, or was it a total bust? Let us know down below in the comments. I just ask, but if you see DC's track record, they hire pretty well-known actors for famous actors like Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Jason Momoa, Zachary Levi, J.K. Simmons. Well, I mean, Henry Cavill is famous because he was Superman. He wasn't famous when he was hired. Ben Affleck was an A-lister. So those are two opposite examples of what they do. I don't think that this, you can say DC does this. Gal Gadot, she was a side character in a couple Fast and Furious movies. Yeah. Jason Momoa is like a fanboy favorite, but he was on one season of Game of Thrones and Stargate or something like that. Like, he is an A-lister because of the DCEU. It's not like, Zachary Levi was on a TV show that did moderately well, but they're all fandom people that had fandom credit, except Henry Cavill, who really had no credibility. He was well known. People knew he was really good, but he didn't have credit. So I wouldn't sit, like, it is not, you can't look in 2020 and say, hey, look, these are all A-listers. Right. They're A-listers because they're in the DCEU now and have been for a number of years. I think I had one more super chat, and then we'll jump on this one. Hey guys, have any of you seen Train to Busan? If you haven't, it's awesome. The sequel comes out next month. If you have thoughts on the film, I have not seen it. It's from SPC Birds 317-1993. Have either one of you seen it?
I love the first. It's so much fun. One of the coolest. And I didn't see it until recently, right? I had to catch it. I had only seen parts of it, but it is
on
so
Netflix.
Good. It's on Netflix, and I think for a while it was on Prime as well as Netflix at the same time. So it's a great movie. I recommend it to anyone who loves zombie films.
Yeah,
I haven't. It's on my mind, especially with a new one coming out. I definitely want to check it out for that reason. And I've got a little bit of time, and it's not a big franchise, so it's entirely possible that I will. I just don't know because I'm working on this big, massive project behind the scenes on this some stuff that's YouTube related, but not posted on my main channel stuff. So I don't know if I'll be able to check it out, but everything I've heard is that it's like a really good, interesting comic book movie. All right, moving along to Comic-Con at home. So last week, which normally would have been San Diego Comic-Con, basically the biggest week when it comes to comic news, movie news. As a movie YouTuber, I'm just normally all hands on deck for Comic-Con to just do reactions to all the big announcements. I'll sit on Twitter tweeting along with panels. Yeah. Last week we had Comic-Con at home, and the response from Variety was Comic-Con at home.
I love that article.
Why was Comic-Con at home a bust? And I think at the core of it is that they simply did not get any good panels for broad appeal. Mass appeal with bombshell announcements. Even the ones that had the potential to do something would be like, oh, turned out to be like, okay.
Yeah.
There wasn't any, nothing that was actually at Comic-Con, one Comic-Con. Like, we can still think back 7 years ago when they did a Comic-Con panel and they had, Harry Lennox walk out and he reads this quote from The Dark Knight Returns, and then they drop a logo, boom, our follow-up to Man of Steel is Batman and Superman.
Yeah.
And even with the movie disappointing a lot of people, that's an iconic Comic-Con moment where it's like, does not matter at all what Marvel announces, boom, DC won Comic-Con. And you can think of like these iconic moments. And this year, what it was like, guys, New Mutants is going to give away access to a press screening. What? That's your big announcement. But like, and then it's like, let's drop a trailer, and we're like, it's dropping at the end of August. We promise. Get the joke. These are not like big wins. And it's like, we've got a trailer for Bill and Ted, even though we dropped the trailer for Bill and Ted 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. What?
What was supposed to be the big winner here? I'll say this. I didn't watch any comic panels. Like, I kind of looked into them a little bit and was like, maybe I should. And I was like, oh, I'm late to this. Let me check Twitter. Is anyone tweeting about these panels? No one was. As soon as Zack Snyder's Justice Con panel started, Twitter blew up. I was on that one. He was dropping bombs. I was tweeting about it. Not one panel from actual Comic-Con did that.
No.
Not one. And like I said, it was both. They went for bulk. It's like, let's have a bazillion panels so you can't even find what you might be interested in. They're all just people sitting in their room, streaming, doing this. And then even the ones that were big ones, no bombshells. None. Not one. Austin, did you watch any of the panels? And was there anything that you would say was the winner of Comic-Con?
Oh. For me, the winner were all of the rumors surrounding Comic-Con before. It's like, Keanu's going to be there. Is he going to be announced as Constantine? What's going on? And then every panel happens, and it's just crickets. all the way through Comic-Con, crickets, and the beauty of what Comic-Con used to be, and I see why they've kind of pulled out. It used to be Marvel versus DC. Who's going to have the bigger announcements? What's going to be the biggest thing? Loki coming out on stage. I mean, just the coolest things ever. Right. And then over the last couple of years, I mean, even last year, wasn't the Mahershala Ali as Blade announcement? Wasn't that Comic-Con? Okay, right. So this is like the first year.
That was thought to be a little bit of like a they announced their future. It's different. It's not quite as they're doing Civil War. Yeah, they're doing. It wasn't that. But it was still like we were all on Twitter talking about every single thing. And we're talking about it right now. Of like, they're doing Blade. We're just like still talking about that now.
Yeah.
Well, it was something, right? And this year we didn't even have something. And I even told everyone, I'm like, yeah, guys, I'm going to cover Comic-Con, going to get so excited. And it was just an empty weekend. I mean, we got a couple of things, some New Mutants press screening if it comes out. The Boys clip, that clip was pretty great, I'll admit, but nothing of note. And it has to be one of the most disappointing, just semi-hyped up weekends. And you could blame what's been happening in the world, sure, but even if that wasn't the case, do we think it would have been any better? I mean, honestly, I pose that to you guys. Do we think Comic-Con would have been better if it were in person this year? Do you think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because here's the thing with Comic-Con, and I think that maybe they shouldn't have really done it online this year. The thing about Comic-Con is people go to see this stuff in person, the exclusivity. They go to roam the floor, to meet the artists, to meet their favorite comic book authors, to meet, God, I don't know, like Tom Kenny and the cast of SpongeBob on like the floor, and buy exclusive merch that you can only buy on the floor. They go and stand in line for hours in these Hall H panels just so that they can see, like physically see the stars of their favorite properties in person. They go to see Kevin Feige give like, an amazing presentation on stage. It's almost like a performance, for them. Right. They go to see stuff like Mahershala Ali getting put out on stage as Blade. That stuff only works in person. You cannot duplicate that virtually. And so I think right off the bat, you're already at a disadvantage. And so now the Comic-Con solely is going to be successful depending upon who is there and the kind of content that you have. And if it's not in person, then, I mean, I imagine that all these studios didn't want to really get involved with it. DC's like, you know what, we're going to do our own thing. Marvel, they're basically in limbo right now and they don't have anything to show. New Mutants was the only one that was like, okay, you could win Comic-Con. And I think they basically did just by default. But the rest of the panels, there was nothing really there. It was all pre-recorded. It wasn't exciting. And so that paired with not being in person and going to see all this stuff exclusively, I think is what made it a giant flop, to be honest.
It was a flop.
Right. Yeah. And I think there are a few things to it. I think it's everything you just said of part of it, the experience of the showmanship of it all. And that's some of why, why is Kevin Feige, such a legend? Because he is good at like walking out, knowing how to work the room and put on all that stuff. And that's the showmanship of it and the shenanigans of who's going to walk out and be released, how they're announced. And there's not really a way to do that live. My wife's work, careful how I say all this, but it's like their national convention for the company was earlier this month, and normally it was 5,000 people in a room, just all corporate stuff, but they're trying to have fun with it, and they tried to do that for the live version of it for people stuck at home, and so they were trying to kind of amp up, and it's tough to do that. It's tough to do that, not kind of come off cheesy, and certainly you're not going to do with these billion-dollar franchises, and so I think there's two sides. If you can't meet live, you can't have the showmanship of it. Second one, how do you, part of the Comic-Con announcements, it's your marketing plan. How do you do a marketing plan, long-term marketing plan for things that you don't know when they're going to come out? Like you can't even promote something a year in advance because the stuff that's supposed to, as one of the things we'll talk about later in this, the stuff that was supposed to come out in December is now coming out next summer. Yeah. It's like everything is shuffling. And it like, okay, well, it's probably not a good time for us to announce our long-term plan when we don't know what the industry is going to look like a year from now. We don't even know, like, is AMC going to go under? We don't know. So how do you long-term plan for that? We don't. And so you can't really do the stuff that makes Comic-Con amazing and those bombshells when you have no confidence in your future. And I think that's killed so much of what they were trying to do for it, or what they try to do for the big Hall H panels.
Yeah, I agree.
Me too.
So we had a super chat come in. Sash Young, very sorry for mispronouncing your name. Tom Cruise is one of my favorite actors, and he's shooting MI7 and 8. Would love the franchise to get Quentin Tarantino treatment. Wow. Thoughts? I hate that idea. I would love. Here's two things I would love: Tom Cruise in a Quentin Tarantino movie, 100%. Yeah. Number two thing I would love: Quentin Tarantino doing a full-on spy movie. I would love that. And we know he loves the genre because he was a big fan of the TV show Alias. And the show Alias is what led to J.J. Abrams. Like, Tom Cruise saw Alias and he went, oh, this is cool. Went to go get the guy behind it, J.J. Abrams. That led to him and Bad Robot kind of being the producing partners for the Mission Impossible movies over the last 15 years. So there's even kind of ties into it to Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino was actually acted on the show Alias. That's what I was referring to. That's how we know he's a fan of it. Like, he literally acted on the show as a character in it. But I don't want his cooking on this franchise. Like, he has it's such a distinct flavor when he cooks something. And what I love about the Mission Impossible franchise is that it's Tom Cruise's cooking. It's his brand, and they are not the same thing. And I would love to see the two of them collaborate. I would love to see him do spy movie. Hey, 10 years from now, if Tom Cruise stops doing these and he does some sort of comeback for one more spy movie in Tarantino, I'm for that. I do not want a Mission Impossible movie that has. I mean, all of his movies are rated R, right? I mean, they're all no question. Right off the bat, like there's all sorts of things like that I wouldn't want that. Griffin, spy movies are your thing. How badly do you want Quentin Tarantino to direct Mission Impossible 9?
He's just not the right guy for it. I mean, I think everything you said is exactly why he shouldn't do it. I mean, his style doesn't really fit well with this. You know what he would be great for? He'd be great for The Man from U.N.C.L.E. If they wanted to, like, take all the restraints off of that and whatnot. I mean, look, like Guy Ritchie is basically like a British Tarantino. I mean, they're very different. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, seeing what Guy Ritchie did with that series, it's a period piece. It already feels like primed for like Tarantino if you wanted to tackle that sort of thing. So that's the spy franchise I'd be more interested in seeing him do something with. MI is just not. I don't know if Tarantino is even capable of doing like the caliber stunts that they do on here or directing them. Listen, he's a capable filmmaker, but it's like it's a different sort of muscle that you have to exercise for that stuff.
Exactly.
And Cruise and McQuarrie are basically on the same wavelength. We have no idea whether Cruise and Tarantino are on the same wavelength. So I don't want to see that. But you know what? You brought up something interesting that I do want to touch on that I want to pose to you guys. So you said Tarantino acted a little bit in Alias, which I had actually forgot about. But, you know, if the next film he does is his final film, what are the chances that you think he delves back into acting? I know we've been talking about writing with him for a while, but people forget that he actually is an actor.
Right. I don't know. I think it's an interesting concept. And, you know, he did. It seems like he's backed off quite a bit over the last 15 years. But that first 15 years, I mean, his character is one of my favorites in Pulp Fiction. I love that the Bonnie situation. I just love the whole deal. And some people are like, he's the weakest actor in the movie. Okay, sure. But he's also acting against people that are fantastic. Like, I don't think he hurts the movie at all. Like, it's a great sequence. I rewatched the movie last week, and it's like, I just love, like, do you understand if my wife comes home and sees a dead body, I'm going to get a divorce. I don't want a divorce.
It's so good. Yeah. And then, like, from Dusk Till Dawn, too.
Right,
like,
he's Dusk Till Dawn, Desperado. He's a ton of this different stuff. We just forget about it because it was all 20 years ago. So I think that'd be fun. How about you? We actually haven't heard from you. What do you want Tarantino doing a Mission Impossible movie, and what do you want him to act in? Do you think he could be the next Tony Stark?
Yeah. The acting thing's interesting. I mean, again, not the best actor comparing, but you're playing the comparison game, right? If he's, maybe something smaller scale or putting him up against actors that aren't of that caliber, I think he would do well. As long as he's in the consciousness after he's done directing, we'll have to see. As long as he's in the consciousness, I'd be interested. In terms of the marriage of Tarantino and Star Trek is one that I had to warm up on. I don't see myself warming up on this. I honestly, and I normally don't say this, I want McQuarrie to just stay with that franchise because he did such a great job with the previous two films, and I think he's on for the next two, right? Yes. So I don't mind that whatsoever. Tarantino and Mission Impossible, it doesn't mix. You put it in a blender, you're going to get two completely different. I don't see it. I don't see it. So let's hope that doesn't happen.
Moving along, I don't want to talk on this one too terribly long because we got a ton of stuff to cover. That the Emmy nominations were put out yesterday. Television's a little bit tricky for me because it's so scattershot, and so everybody watches different shows. So I haven't even seen most of the stuff that's been nominated. But one of the big ones that does apply into kind of the content that we do talk about here frequently, The Mandalorian was actually nominated for Best Drama, which would be a big win for Disney Plus. Obviously, it's a big win for Star Wars. To get my quick thoughts on this one, people are asking me, do you think it should have been nominated? Do you think these other shows should have been nominated? I haven't seen enough of these shows to know what should have been nominated. I'll just say this. As someone that's as big of a Mandalorian as anybody, it struck me as weird that it was nominated for this. It's not really trying to be prestige television. It's just trying to be really good popcorn. I mean, even the way it's episodic, it did what it was trying to do really well, but it just doesn't seem like it's trying to win these types of awards. So when it was nominated, it seemed like I don't know. It just seems weird to me that it got nominated. Austin, what do you think about the Emmy nominations? Just is kind of broad level.
I'll tell you this. I mean, granted, we've all had, I guess, more cleared up schedules this summer. I've seen more shows than I've ever seen nominated for Emmy, so that's cool. Listen, I am so happy The Mandalorian got nominated, but you look at some of the other shows that weren't nominated, I'm like, Euphoria, right?
Griffin,
I know you're as upset as I am. How do you feel about that, man?
Okay. Well, just to put it short, the Mandalorian didn't even campaign really for this. They did not dump a lot of money into it, which is the complete opposite of what you would normally see from a show that is nominated for this. Right. So that just means that they went with it, which is bizarre. Look, I am probably the least hot on the Mandalorian as on this panel compared to both of you. I enjoyed it. I don't think it was all that great, and it was kind of
Where's the button on here? How do I kick this guy out?
I don't know. It left a lot to be desired, but man.
And I totally get that. That's exactly right. Like for me, I have all these ties to nostalgia, watching it with my son, the fact that we have some Star Wars that actually was good. And even in the ways that it's bad, it's not divisively bad. It's not like, why did you do this to Luke? It's not dividing the fan base. It's just like, okay, this got really episodic. So it's, but like, there's faults in what they did. There's very obvious faults that everyone that even liked the show, they go, they probably should have done this a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When you have something just as like confronting and just like poignant and incredibly well acted, stylized, and just with a killer soundtrack and a score like Euphoria, that's like really heavy and mature, but it's like relatable. It's like, how in God's name did that not get nominated for outstanding drama series? Like, it blows my mind. And then I guess like the next one would be like The Morning Show, which I think is a good show, definitely more Emmy baity, but like I'm still, my jaw is still on the floor from the fact that Euphoria did not get a best drama series nomination. And listen, The Mandalorian is not the show that should have gotten in there. There are countless other. Westworld should have gotten in there over The Mandalorian. So I don't know. It's just weird to me.
So the weird is the key word, because I don't understand fully what they're going for with the nomination. Because I always think people are trying to do something, and the reason they put this one in there, because you just watch it and you go, it's a popcorn Star Wars show. That's like it's a a fun Western in Star Wars, cute baby Yoda. But it's when you have all these shows that are much more complex storytelling inherently, like built into it. Mandalorian, it's intentionally simplistic storytelling. It's intentionally going back to the formula of old Westerns. Each episode is a different classic Western told in the world of Star Wars, but straightforward, simple stories at its core. And then you have all of these complex dramas and other shows that have cinematic filmmaking, all the different stuff that Mandalorian also has. It's odd. It's very odd.
Griffin.
Yeah. Or go ahead.
I was going to ask you, do you know about foreign TV shows? Dark, for example. I was kind of shocked. I don't know the rules for and
I don't know
that.
the rules either.
Would that have, because I was shocked because that's one of the best things I've seen in a long time. Season 2, I believe.
It's the best thing that I haven't seen based off all the messages I keep receiving from people.
Yeah, that's right. You get messages all the time to watch Dark.
It's like a weekly conversation on here.
Yeah,
still haven't seen Dark. Still getting messages that I should watch Dark.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a good point, Austin, because I don't know the rules on that, but I would assume that since it's a Netflix thing, that it competes in the same category as the rest of those Netflix shows. In which case, you could make a really strong argument for that too. Yeah. I don't really, really weird. I don't know why they went with the Mandalorian. So listen, for technical achievements, absolutely. Sure, like that's great. It's one of the best looking shows ever, and it cleaned up in that department. But I don't know. Maybe that's why it got the outstanding drama, is because it was like, okay, well, it doesn't have the writing or the performances, but if you look from the other side, the technical side, the directing, the effects, the sound, the score, all that stuff, it is really successful. So maybe we'll throw it in there as like the technical choice. I don't know. That's my only rationale for why that should have gotten in there. But even still, man.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So had a super chat come in. Guys, both of you love Breaking Bad. Thoughts on Rhea and Bob not scoring any nominations for Better Call Saul? Really sad. So the tricky thing for me always with television is that there's so much of it that it's really tough to have watched all of it. And so I haven't seen Better Call Saul yet. And then I haven't seen most of the other shows that it got beat over in. So as much as I'm always rooting for Bob and want that show to be successful, because I appreciate what they did on Breaking Bad, and I plan to watch Better Call Saul. Like that'll happen probably in the next year. I don't really want to comment on like, oh man, it's really sad this thing that didn't happen, even though I haven't seen the competition to know why it didn't.
Yeah.
It's television is such a different beast because there's so much of it, and it's a lot more niche and targeted as opposed to movies that are a little bit more broad. There's fewer of them, and they're a lot shorter.
I'll tell you what, I was kind of shocked. I didn't see everything in that category, but I saw most of because there were multiple nominations for multiple shows. Yeah, he's always getting nominated, isn't he? Bob Odenkirk, he's always getting nominated. Giancarlo Esposito got a nomination for supporting. He didn't get one. And I thought he was just as impressive this season as he has been. So yeah, that one, that and a couple of other acting nominations really, really shocked me this year. I just, I don't know what to think about it.
Did and maybe I read this wrong. Did Giancarlo Esposito, did he get one for Better Call Saul, or did he get one for The Mandalorian?
Mandalorian. Wait, is
Better Call Saul? Yeah,
I thought it was for Better Call Saul.
Esposito nominated. What do we got here?
But if it was Mandalorian,
that's even more of a head scratcher. If it is Mandalorian, it was
Mandalorian Emmy nominee Giancarlo Esposito.
What? That is,
I didn't know that.
How do you? Yeah, okay, so that's what I thought.
One acting nomination this morning for Disney Plus's Mandalorian belonged to Giancarlo Esposito. Which is once again like
that is
forgetting he's in that other show.
that is baffling. That's
became
baffling.
A legend overnight by showing up in season 3 of Breaking Bad. And you're like, who is this guy? This guy's so good. He has such a screen presence at like 50 years old, suddenly became this guy that everybody knew who he was. You know, the comment as we've been watching all this, people are like, hey, who should he play in the MCU? Like, all of that goes back to this role Gus on Breaking Bad. No, The Mandalorian. He grabbed the darksaber.
Yeah, that's
let's give him an Emmy for this.
Yeah, that is just. I mean, look, like if you're, he was barely in The Mandalorian. How he didn't even give enough of a performance to warrant
standing there. Yeah, there's not a lot of
nomination. Yeah, that's just weird. Thing is
weird. So another super chat that came in from Tom is, what about Stranger Things? Are they deserving? I mean, it's like very cool television. I really enjoy it. That's kind of always when it comes to these things. What is your definition of deserving? Even looking at trying to figure out, are we deciding it based off of what the types of things that they look at to nominate things, in which case I have no clue what they're looking at. Are you basing it what is just the best? These are all subjective terms that people interpret wildly differently. That's why I just stay out of the best category. I'm not really into award ceremonies. I'm just not very good at it. Like I've perceived myself as very bad because the way that my brain is naturally wired is to be like, here's my opinion. It's not the right opinion. And when I say best implies more objective. And so I'm just not the right person to decide that. I really enjoy Stranger Things seasons 1 and 3. Is it better than all these other shows that I haven't watched? I don't know. Is something better because it's more serious and not fandom? Not really. Yeah. Is it better because it tackles important themes? That can be an element, but I don't think that having important themes inherently makes something better made. So there's just a lot of things to factor into what you qualify as deserving.
Yeah.
Griffin, I do love prestige stuff and awards shows.
Yeah, I do want to correct. So actually, we were both right. He was nominated for Best Guest Star on The Mandalorian and Best Supporting for Better Call Saul. So that's where the discrepancy was. And I looked it up.
Yeah, legend right there. Yeah, 2 nominations. Woo.
There we go.
And we're also legends too because we were both correct on this.
There you go. Yeah, so it's like you both spoke at the same time and gave the correct answer. But you gave 2 different answers. That's wild. In terms of Stranger Things, listen, I think Stranger Things season 3 is probably the best season of that show. They really, really hit it with the emotions, and I think it is deserving of that nomination. Performances are excellent. The story was like, I know some people feel like they retread the same thing a lot, but I don't know. To me, it felt a little bit different in season 3, or different enough to the point where I was like, okay, yeah, we know what's going on with the monster and everything, but that's not where the drama is. The drama is with the characters and their struggle and like coming of age and stuff like that. And so I think Stranger Things is pretty consistently entertaining and has like the writing and the what do you call it? The craftsmanship behind it to sort of back up what they're doing. So yeah, I don't know. For me, I think it is deserving, but I can understand why people would take it out and maybe like slide in some other stuff in there. I'll put it this way. I think it's certainly more deserving than The Mandalorian, just based on a writing standpoint.
Okay, we had a super chat come in, and then we're gonna. Oh, sorry. Did you have something to add on that one?
No. I was just gonna say I'm with Griff. I'm a bit biased when it comes to Stranger Things because I love it so much, but I do think in terms of awards caliber, I do think it is maybe deserving for what it got nominated for. So I'm happy.
Yeah. So a super chat come in. We'll tackle this one, and then we're going to dive into all of the release date stuff from the past week. It was just a landslide of release date information. Just says this, guys, you have grown up loving Star Wars and indie. How would you repackage those original trilogies to today's generation who would find them dated? Wow. I kind of would reject the premise of the question. I have an 8-year-old son, and he's watched the original Star Wars trilogy, and he can sit there and watch it. It's dated in the sense that the technology wasn't quite there, and so you can certainly see some dated special effects. If you raise someone only on CGI, and then you're like, here, let me show you practical effects, then they go, well, this looks crazy and weird. If you don't do that, then that's not the case. These are movies that created the current pacing of films. They are a little bit slower than today's blockbusters, but they are dramatically faster than the blockbusters of immediately before when they came out. They ushered in the way that we do blockbusters. They invented the term blockbuster through what Spielberg and Lucas did. So I kind of reject the premise of them. I don't think that you need to repackage them. I think the Indiana Jones movies move at a brisk pace, have humor to them, and because they're period piece films, they're intentionally designed in a way that the effects, even though they are dated, don't really come off dated. So I would more reject the premise, and I don't think that they're movies that you need to repackage them to win people over. Griffin, you believe, as someone younger than me, believe that movies before 1990 all suck. So
yes, they do.
Do you have anything to repackage them or anything like that?
How would you repackage original trilogy? I don't know. That's such like a weird question because I don't. Why? Yeah, I agree with you. Why do you need to repackage them? Can't you just like watch them and enjoy them as is now? I mean, I understand like there's so many different ways to interpret that because like I understand like restoring them for like a 4K Blu-ray release. That's totally fine. But like, why would I don't know. Why would you change stuff about them? Like going to Star Wars, people don't like the current versions of that original trilogy because they changed what was already great about the originals and added in just this floofy, stupid nonsense that in some cases kind of makes the films worse, especially Return of the Jedi. Yeah. Yeah, the singing.
I think even what's the best thing you can do to repackage them? Man, I almost feel like saying like The Force Awakens, releasing that movie, because that's the gateway for a new generation. You go, oh, do you like this? And you get used to it, and it's true to the originals. And you know, the criticism is that it's paying too much homage. It's taking too much from A New Hope. Yeah. But that's the thing, that it creates a bridge of a movie that's made it current special effects. You get into it, you like the world, and if you enjoy that, it's not like a hard pill to swallow to go back and watch A New Hope.
Exactly. I mean, it's the great thing about, like, you know, when there's been a long period of time since we've seen, you know, a film in this franchise is exactly what you said. It gives them an opportunity to re-release this stuff either theatrically or on physical media, maybe do a restoration of some sort, generate hype, get people to rediscover these films before they go see the new one, or maybe after they've seen the new one. Hey, guys, we've got like 3 or 4 or whatever, however many of these movies over here that are like beloved classic movies. So if you love this, it's in the same franchise, check these out. It's literally like what we do on YouTube. Like, it's just like, if you like this video, you want to see more, check out this playlist over here. Like, that's
exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, you know, if they make this James Mangold Indiana Jones movie and it's a Logan-esque deconstruction of Indiana Jones, even the simple fact that he's an old man, even if it's a great movie, it's not a great bridge to what those films were. Even some of the reason that, you know, King of the Crystal Skull isn't a great bridge to those previous ones, there's a lot more green screen CGI that kind of broke from some of the formula. Yeah. Whereas if they'd done all that practically, it would have fit better. And that's even some of the reason it just feels weird and off is that stuff that they moved away from the aesthetic that they used for the original trilogy. So I don't think that that's the right direction to go or the way to think about it either. All right. So last week, overshadowing actually any Comic-Con announcement from the first day of Comic-Con was just a series of announcements of delays. A Quiet Place 2, Top Gun Maverick, and a ton of other movies were pushed back. Now, we don't need to go through, break all of this down or anything like that, but tons of movies got delayed, and then TENET got a new release date with a new release strategy, which is this staggered release of international in certain markets at the end of August, and then in some cities in the United States after Labor Day weekend or something like that. So tons of announcement on this stuff. It feels like we're saying the same thing every single week. Like, well, yeah, duh, they're delaying stuff. They don't know what's going to happen. Theaters probably aren't really going to open. I don't know if this TENET thing's going to happen. It's like a weird experiment. We'll see what happens. So I don't even have much to say on it. People are like, what do you think about this? What they're doing with TENET? I don't know. I'm going to have to see what happens. I don't trust that it's going to happen. I feel entirely like we're gonna have another spike 3 weeks from now. Like things are gonna die down and it's gonna go back up. If they open the theaters, who knows what's I have no clue. Because all of this is a big surprise. Austin, any surprises that movies got delayed in the year 2020? And do you think that Tenet will hit its staggered release?
Shocked, man. Shocked, baffled, just utterly couldn't believe it. Sadness, pain, devastation. No, we expected this. It's going to keep happening. You know, it's something that I think we have to accept at this point. I mean, maybe the Tenet release date sticks, but I've said that 3 times now, and it's not happened. I don't I don't see 2020 going as planned. Even as of now, things will continue to shift. But I will say, I mean, there is just like a glimmer of hope with, and I know we're going to talk about this a bit later with, you know, the deal being worked out between AMC and Universal and the fact that Nolan is so adamant about doing this because he wants to get back to that theatrical experience. So on the outside, it's sad, but if we look into it a bit more, maybe there's that just tiny glimmer of hope. We'll just have to wait and see.
Griffin, were you shocked that these were delayed?
Yes, I shocked to my core. I can't believe it. I no. And I think here's the thing. You have to look at Paramount specifically. This isn't just like an instance of like, oh, movies are getting delayed left and right because of the pandemic we're in. No. Paramount cannot really afford to take a hit there with all the money they've dumped into Quiet Place, with all the money they dumped into Top Gun and everything. Like those are 2 movies that they're putting all their chips in on there because they know that they're guaranteed money makers, and they as a studio cannot afford to lose any of that money. So they're going to push it to next year. Hopefully things will be better for them, but you know, I understand that because I think they took a loss on a few films that they recently released. So to me, it makes sense. You know, if they were in a better position financially, I could see them maybe trying to release A Quiet Place in September. Again, I think a lot of this kind of falls on like what happens with Tenet and then who's going to kind of like follow suit after. Are other studios going to adopt a similar mentality and take the risk just to see what happens? So yeah, in this instance, no, not surprised, but I am curious to see what other studios do.
And the big one that dropped yesterday, this shocked me to my core. Snake Eyes, the G.I. Joe movie.
Listen, dude.
It was supposed to come out in October. That one was delayed. I was like, what? Even Snake Eyes? That movie that they have not released a frame from or a trailer or made any announcements about. That's not actually going to come out 2 months from now? What?
Well, it's also another Paramount movie, if I'm not mistaken. So they really are just like, guys, we've given our best in 2020. We can't afford to lose money. So Snake Eyes, even you are going to have to move to an undetermined date in 2021.
The Snake Eyes news shocked me because I didn't know the movie existed. I had no clues. They're like, hey, this movie.
It's like I feel like no information about it.
That news came out 5 years ago. That's what it feels like 5 years ago. And I'm like, oh, that still happened. No, it's not. It's moved. So it's just like this. So many emotions, guys. I was baffled.
When I tweeted about it, so many people were like, I didn't even know this was a thing. I hadn't even heard about this. And then there was always like, tons of people saying, I haven't heard about it. And then there's always that one guy that's like, I remembered that this was coming out. I'm really disappointed. Like, what? You're the one?
I think when I figured out that Snake Eyes was actually a movie and it was actually happening was when they created the Twitter account for it and they released the logo. And I was like, excuse me, what? This is actually a thing? Like, oh, good Lord. Anyways, yeah.
Along these same lines, speaking of movie theaters, my local theater actually opens back up on Friday. And I looked at the lineup, and it's literally like 8 of them are my top 10, and then the next 2 are my wife's top 10. I mean, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's Jaws, it's Harry Potter, Back to the Future, Jurassic Park. I mean, legitimately, just a rundown. And then all of it says like classics return, and then The Hunt. Classics return.
and then the hunt. yeah.
Bloodshot. Classics return.
Man.
So I'm pretty excited to go to the movies and get a bad case of coronavirus this Friday.
Listen,
about that one.
As long as you are making that decision with all the knowledge that you know, Sean, then I think that that's okay. You've calculated the risks. You know that, listen, if I get this, it'll destroy our whole family. But you know what? Those classics are worth the risk. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm sorry. Bloodshot is worth the risk.
I want to take Bloodshot. But that's even the thing about, the theater being open and everything like that and playing movies like that. Back to the question before, like I see that and go like, okay, if it's safe to go, man, that would be so cool to take my son to see Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. Like however long this sticks around, whenever it's like take my son to see Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't want to take him to see that boring old slow paced movie with that unlikable lead character. Like, no, you're like, this is a cool movie. It's still like, and how do you get people the next generation to love it? See it on the big screen. That is it.
Yeah.
Speaking of the big screen, we reported back was it April or early May? Universal announced that they were going to start continuing to do this movies drop on digital when they're in theaters, which was tactically not the wisest thing to do because there's long running negotiations, both official and unofficial, between movie studios and theaters to where they negotiate back and forth to what the time frame is before studios can put movies on digital. So making that statement ill-advised, and then AMC's like, all right, well, we're not going to put Universal movies on our screens then, which is, AMC doesn't have a lot of leverage to say that when they're this close from shutting. Their doors are already shut, but they're this close to not being in business anymore because they have such financial troubles. As of yesterday, they cut a deal. They've worked out their differences. Mom and dad are getting back together. And I believe they said it was 17 days after a movie releases in theaters, Universal can put it on digital. So 17 days seems like a random number until you go, that's 2 weeks in 3 weekends. So weekends are the big things for movies. And so they say, all right, we want 3 weekends, 2 weeks. That's where that number comes from. What do I think about it? I think Corona turned the whole world upside down. That everything, all bets are off. Everyone's just trying to figure out what's the best way to survive. How do we keep making money? How do we prepare for the fact that things like this can happen in the future? So that's the way I perceive of all of this. They're all cutting deals. They're all trying to find out what's best for them.
Yeah.
Austin, what do you make of this?
Yeah, well, everything's
Are you
different.
Team AMC or Team Universal? Which corporate overlord do you serve?
Well, considering I don't actually have an AMC near me, I saw this news and I go, oh, that's daggone it. So it's like, I got to drive like an hour if it's only at AMC theaters. But no, I do like the idea that the studios are trying to, one, put aside their differences, which is nice, but also trying to compromise. I mean, that's the world that we're living in right now, right? It's all of these. Look at sports. I mean, I've been really heavy into football and the NFL over the last couple of weeks. And, after what happened with baseball last week, it's now what do we do? I mean, we should have expected all of these cases to go, but what do we do? Right? The NBA is in a bubble. Like the entire world is having to compromise. So we should expect things like this to continue within the industry with companies and theater chains and whatnot. But it is just a crazy world we're living in. And at this point, we have to buckle up and see what else happens.
So, all right, real quick, our final subject of the day, in just a moment, we're going to have Austin give us a rundown of the best of Netflix originals during the first half of the year. Because I don't know, because I only watch like things that star familiar faces. He actually knows stuff about that, so I brought him on to give us his take. So be sure to tell us down below in the comments, in the chat, what to you have been the best Netflix originals thus far this year. We did have a super chat come in real quick, so we'll tackle this one while you guys post your favorite Netflix originals and while Austin thinks up a mind-blowing list of recommendations. He says, Shawshank says, guys, speaking of No Time to Die getting delayed, what would be all of your picks for the most underrated Bond film? License to Kill. Griffin, you're the expert. What's your pick?
Yeah, I mean, either of the Dalton films for sure, or On Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby. But I'll actually go with Quantum of Solace, because I think people just like dog on that movie for all the wrong reasons. It's like, and I say this every time I bring it up, but it's an amazing, excellent follow-up to Casino Royale that, yeah, it doesn't hit the same highs, but like it beautifully concludes Bond's arc throughout the course of those two films. So like, take out all the surface level or surface level superficial issues with the movie. It's really, really solid.
Yeah, I'm with Sean, License to Kill. But Griffin, I'm not a fan of that one. So I've seen it once, so it may require a bit of a rewatch because it's been a while. But you're kind of making me want to go back and revisit that before the new one. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. So, for me, I got into Bond right around GoldenEye. So that's when I started to be kind of middle school age, got started, watching TBS, TNT. My parents weren't big Bond fans or anything like that, so I kind of discovered it on my own. And then, so what were the ones that came out right before that was Dalton. And then, he was out. And it was like I liked that take on the character, really like Dalton. And then they have a little bit more edge to them. And so I've always enjoyed the Dalton films, and there's only two of them. And so because there's only two of them, he's not as much in some of the conversations as these other long-running Bonds. And then, License to Kill, little it's violent. Benicio del Toro gets a wonderful closing scene in that movie. It's pretty vicious.
Yeah.
Mom let me watch. People explode in this movie, get chopped up in meat grinders. That's the one to me that's just my obvious immediate pick on that one. All right, moving right along. I'm going to send this one right over to you, Austin, as the resident Netflix originals expert. That's kind of, if you guys don't know, if you're kind of being introduced to Mr. Burke, kind of one of the things he does great on his channel is dives into all these Netflix original shows, movies, and that's a lot of where his expertise is, and he covers it a lot more extensively than I have, and that's why he's perfect to come on here and chime in on what things should I potentially check out. I checked out Desperados earlier this month. Is that on your list of some of the best originals?
It's on a list, not the good one. That's for sure.
Yeah, so my wife and I were both actually, this might sound crazy, we were both really excited about this movie because it was Dahlia from Aladdin. And she was like this standout. It's like she's the girl in it that's this new character playing off of Will Smith, the most charismatic guy in the last 30 years, and holding her own, and she was funny. And so we thought, she's going to star in a movie. We're like, this will be great. No. There's one moment in this scene with a dolphin. Everybody that's seen the movie goes, I didn't like the movie, and then the dolphin scene happened, and I'm out. Like my wife, who was clearly not enjoying the movie, she literally stood up. She goes, I'm out. I'm out. I'm done with this movie. And it only got worse from there.
Yeah, it was so bad. That's not on the list for sure. But
the Wrong Missy is, right? The Wrong Missy is on the list. Like, let's be real here. Yeah.
You guys are reminding me. It's,
what is worse?
Honestly, I think I gave them, I may have given them the exact same score, which is in the 2 range. So it's not good out of 10, not out of 3.
Which one is more disappointing? The one that David Spade is still like, oh man, this guy, they gave him a movie again, and it's this, or the girl from Aladdin gets a shot, and then I saw even some retweets from some people. I don't remember which country she's from, but it's representation that she really cool things, and then they give her this just garbage movie with a whale or dolphin penis.
And I like the other actors in there as well. You have the girl from Pitch Perfect. You've got our guy, Lamorne. I think his name's Lamorne Morris or whatever. He was great, and it's just like they botched that premise, completely botched it, unfunny, and those are the worst movies. I do have a couple of movies that I want to share. First, I do want to share some of the season 2s and 3s, the sequel seasons. We've already talked a bit about Dark. Season 3, one of the coolest sci-fi finales I've ever seen. There's a show called On My Block, which is a coming-of-age show. And I think we talked about that last week. I think Kristen talked about that one. It's so good. It's so good. Maybe the wrap up season, but I don't think so. That season 3 of that, I believe 3 was fantastic. There are plenty of sequel seasons that we could talk about, including Umbrella Academy, which is not out yet, but I thoroughly enjoyed season 2 of that. I do want to talk about, though, a documentary just super quick that I know a lot of you all have seen. It came off of ESPN, now on Netflix. It is a Netflix original. It's called, there you go. It is called The Last Dance. I am a massive Michael Jordan fan. I think he's the greatest player of all time. And it was cool to see go in his head, right, and see how he plays the game. But not only how he plays the game, but how he associates himself to being the ultimate winner, right? And that winner's mentality, sometimes good, sometimes bad. One of my favorite things that I've seen on Netflix all year. I do have some original shows, though, that maybe not a lot of people have seen. We'll talk about two. I have a little bit of a longer list, but we'll keep it brief because I like to talk. One called Never Have I Ever. Mindy Kaling was heavily involved in this, and it's described as the complicated life of a modern-day first-generation Indian-American teenage girl, and it's actually based on Kaling's childhood. I expected, it's 10 episodes, 30-minute episodes. I expected nothing from the show, nothing, because we've seen this 1,000 times on Netflix. It was a great time. A great coming of age story. You're getting a different perspective on how someone like her lives her life, and she's kind of narrating us through so many cute and funny gags. I mean, it's just a show that I would recommend to anyone who loves coming of age. Sort of the opposite end of the spectrum, something a lot more serious. And this had a couple of nominations for the Emmys. It's called Unorthodox. I don't know if either one of you have had the chance to see that. Shira Haas was nominated. And this is the story of an ultra-Orthodox Jewish woman who flees her arranged marriage and finds a new life, right? Only 4 episodes, the perfect binge. It is some of the most emotional television I've seen in quite some time. So good. You're going to get all that Emmy recognition once you see the show. And I saw a couple things in the chat. BoJack Horseman, absolutely a couple of shows that I'll miss out on. Have you guys had the chance to see any of those so far? No. Last Dance. Sean, are you a Michael Jordan fan?
Sure. I mean, like, you know, I'm 90s. So was it 1992 Dream Team? Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Patrick Ewing. I mean, all of those guys, that's my childhood. I'm not a big sports guy, but, of course, tracked all that stuff. And so then Michael Jordan was the king of this incredible era. Everybody loved it. And so I just haven't seen it. Like, that's where a lot of times people are like, oh, you would love this. It's like, you're probably right. The problem is that, especially right now, my kids are here home all day. We only really have one place where we watch TV in our house, and they're trying to be entertained by things, and it's just tough. It's just really tough to be able to watch everything I'm interested in watching and everything I need to watch for the channel. There's just too many. That's the factor. Actually, I had a question come in. Diziel, very sorry to pronounce your name. At least review Dark for your international audience. I see about half the people in your chat are Indian. Every nation except U.S. is watching it, trending #1 in India. And none of that's lost on me at all. Like, I totally get that. Like, I'm, and it's not that I'm not interested. It's none of those things. Like, I've spent the last few weeks trying to watch through the IMDb top 15 for a video I've wanted to do for a while, but it took me 3 weeks just to do prep for this one deal. People are asking me, you should watch Avatar Last Airbender. And there's just a lot of things out there that make it really tough. So whether it's Last Dance, whether it's Dark, it's just tough to watch all the things I need to watch while I can't watch them during the day because my kids are here and there's only so much I can watch at night with that, like, wife, come and watch this German science show. Maybe she'd be really into it. She really wants to watch Deep Blue Sea 3 tonight.
Oh man, Deep Blue Sea. I just rewatched the first one yesterday, and oh boy, wow. Oof,
what a film.
Wow. I can't say that it's a good movie, but it is a movie with Thomas Jane.
Griff, did you get a chance to see any of the, whether it's Last Dance or Dark season 3, any of those shows?
I don't think I watched the most recent season of Dark. I've seen the first 2 seasons. Okay. Obviously the show's great, so I recommend it to everyone. I have not seen The Last Dance. I don't know. I mean, I was interested in it for sure. And just sort of like, I had heard all these great things about it, and it's probably one of the best things ESPN's produced, I assume. Yeah, so no, that's definitely on my list for stuff I want to watch. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that there are just so many things that, and I know each of us have our own list of things that we have to get to. Like some of these shows that I talked about, Unorthodox, I never would have watched that if I didn't have to review it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was introduced. A lot of these shows end up being bad, and I'm like, I wasted 10 hours of my life. But something like that, I'm really happy that I got the chance to watch. Now, it just a couple of movies, just in case, because I know we're more movie people here, recommendations. I know you guys have probably seen The Five Bloods. Okay.
Yeah, I have.
That's the clear, recommendation from me. I was a big fan of The Platform. I like that movie a lot. I know it's a bit. I
saw that at Fantastic Fest last year, so I actually saw it in a theater. With a rowdy audience too. So I saw it a long time ago.
I would love to see that in a theater. See what it changes with the experience. Old Guard. I'm sure we know the Old Guard. A couple of movies that not a lot of people have heard of. A film called Tiger Tail, directed by Alan Yang. I was a huge fan of this movie. It's about a guy who's kind of reflecting on his life. It's telling the story in an interesting way. In his youth, he went from Taiwan to America and changed cultures completely. I thought it was a beautiful movie. And then the other film is it's called The Half of It. Now, you think of these Netflix love stories, you think of The Kissing Booth, and I like To All the Boys.
I think about Kissing Booth 3. I'm very excited they're going to close out this trilogy next year. How did we not cover that earlier?
How did we not do that?
It's already been shot.
I mean, we've been talking about a disappointing 2020. This has to be the best news we've received. I was tickled pink we got this news. Seriously, I almost threw my phone across. But yeah, this one's actually, it's called The Half of It. It's a very good coming of age story. And it's about a really shy girl who kind of falls for a certain person. I don't want to give a lot away, but associated with her, and she's having difficulties coming out about it. And her best friend, there's this other interesting relationship. So you're like, oh, Austin, it's a love triangle. It's a very well-directed love triangle. And when you get a movie like that, it's worth talking about. So The Half of It, if you're another coming-of-age recommendation from me, if you're a fan, I definitely say that over The Kissing Booth and the second one, which is bad.
All right. So we got to close out the audio version of this real quick. I was told that you really liked The Babysitter's Club.
Yes. So, how did I not talk about that, Sean?
I don't know. It's apparently like this thing that comes up on the podcast all the time now. So I was shocked that you didn't bring it up. I was told specifically that you liked it.
Kristen and Rachel, did they talk about it?
Yeah.
The Kissing Booth, the Babysitter's Club has been a big hot topic of discussion on this podcast recently.
Yes. Who would have thought? Hey, I wouldn't have
kind of insane.
Well, I think it's just
that you expect TENET, James Bond, anything Marvel, anything DC, and The Babysitter's Club now.
It's just the shock factor. It's like I don't go into The Babysitter's Club. I'm like, here we go. It's another. Man, I'm like, I'm with those girls. I'd let them babysit my kids. Like I loved the story, and I walked away like, give me a season 2, and we're getting one. So yeah, that's another great recommendation.
All right, we got to close out the audio version here. We'll still take some questions on the live chat. So if you want to throw in some super chats, we've got a few lined up already, as well as any questions. We'll stick on for a little bit until my battery dies. Austin, where can we find you on the internet?
Yeah, Austin Burke on YouTube, on Letterboxd. I like to log everything that I watch, and at the Burkeinator on the Twitters and the Instagrams. Thank you, Sean, for having me on here, man. It was
congratulations on being accepted on Rotten Tomatoes. Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you so much. It was awesome. But honestly, I mean, watching videos, you and Griff, both of you, all the time, like just kind of gives me the motivation and pushes me to want to keep doing more and more. So I appreciate you too, and I can't wait to go binge more Netflix stuff after this.
Griffin, where can we find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can head on over to the Film Speak channel for all the stuff I have going on over there, reviews, live shows, all that good stuff. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Griff Schiller.
Very cool. That'll do it for the audio version of the podcast. You can find the original live stream of these. They're almost always Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Central Time if you want to join in on the chat. But if you also want to check this out at a later time, it is available on almost all the podcasting sites. The link is down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and keep talking movies way too much. All right, Austin, if you're able to stick around with us, we'll take some questions for just a few minutes. I've only got 9% battery life, so we're not going to be on here too long. Got a few super chats queued up on here. First one, Shashank. Guys, Spielberg and Scorsese are two of my favorite directors who inspire me. Me being a teenager, does your perspective on their legacy change as you grow? I think absolutely. I think with almost all of film, you process them, you interpret them based off your phase of life. And you get something different out of them. And so I think especially with like a Scorsese who makes very mature films that tackle really complex stuff, you will continually get something different out of them. And you'll see things there. Like, you know, I believe I saw Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in the theater. So I would have been 7 years old. Watching that movie as a kid, it's just a fun, funny movie with a bunch of great action. When you watch it as a father, you interpret the whole thing differently. You just you really process it differently, and that's a lot of movies like that you naturally gravitate towards one dynamic of the film, and as you get older, you understand it through a different dynamic, through a different relationship. So I would assume that you, especially with directors like that who have been making movies since 30 years before you were born, 40 years before you were born, that you'll perpetually interpret their work differently. Did you guys have anything to add on that?
I completely agree, especially the Scorsese note. That's a director that I have. I mean, you watch one of those movies as a kid, it's not necessarily going to hit you like a Goodfellas like it would when you're older, but a lot of those have progressively become my favorite movie. Spielberg, I think one of the beautiful things that he does is he can manage to hit every audience. But then you go watch something like The Schindler's List, and you're like, man, this is an adult. Like, he's just so well-rounded. I think both of those are good examples as directors.
Yeah, and I think there are certain films that, like, you're right, with Spielberg, they're definitely geared towards everyone. I think you could appreciate it even at a young age, but, like, when you're watching it when you're older, you might be able to get some new things out of it. Like, if you're watching Last Crusade, when you're older, you might be able to relate a little bit more to Indy and Sean Connery's relationship there. Like it's stuff like that might, inherently as a kid, you're focused on the spectacle, the action, the excitement. And then when you view it as an adult, you take more of the thematics out of it. And I think that's kind of the cool thing about, like, how a relationship evolves over time with these filmmakers.
Moving on, George Kirk asks, and I don't know if that's Captain Kirk's father or the person that Griffin I know. Hey guys, recently been rewatching animated Batman intellectual property. I think The Dark Knight Returns ranks as one of the best films in live action or animated. Thoughts? Like those ones where they do direct translations of the graphic novels tend to be the animated films that I like the most.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would say top, like that I would. It's tough for me to compare a translation of a graphic novel as an animated film to The Dark Knight. There's just a lot of pretty different in the scope, scheme, and a bunch of things like that. So it's tough for me to do that. But like the two by far standout animated Batman movies over the last 15 years were the Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One. And it's not where they tried to like squish it into their continuity or like, let's do this story, but let's do it with New 52, but tie it to these other things. We want the Justice League to show up. They didn't do all that stuff. They just went, let's take this and not adapted, but really translated.
Yeah.
So those two really do stand out to me. I've always liked Batman Year One more than The Dark Knight Returns because I love origin stories, and so that's the one that I actually have watched more than The Dark Knight Returns. But both are great. I love the score for The Dark Knight Returns.
They
have a really, really cool score. Like when I'm in the mood to like amp myself up, I'll put on Man of Steel. I'll put on John Williams Superman. I don't put on Danny Elfman Batman. I don't put on Hans Zimmer Dark Knight. I put on Dark Knight Returns' score. It's cool.
Yeah.
So what's you guys' thoughts on that one?
I think I might agree with George on this one. I'm a massive fan of that animated adaptation. It's I mean, The Dark Knight Returns is one of the best Batman stories of all time. Right. And when you get a direct translation like that with remarkable vocal performances, I mean, they literally got RoboCop to voice Batman. Like, that is, first of all, wow, incredible. And then Michael Emerson as Joker is so good. Like they rank as some of the best performances of those characters for sure. So yeah, you've got all that talent involved. You've already got like the proven source material. You adapt that for an animated film, a 2-parter, and it is just one epic ride that works on all levels. So I agree. I don't know if it's my personal favorite out of the animated films. I think mine would be Return of the Joker, which is just superb in many different ways. But The Dark Knight Returns animated film might be number 2. And so I think it's at least better than probably half of the Batman films out there. Yeah. So I think it definitely can compete, even being an animated film.
I love Under the Red. Yeah, I love Under the Red Hood. It's a great one. Mask of I'm so excited for that trailer. I loved it. Mask of the Phantasm's a great one, but I think I agree. I've never had such a great watching something on the small screen for the first time experience than when I did those. And I think I actually missed the first one, so I did them back to back. Oh my gosh, man, what an experience! It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Tom asks, have y'all seen Stargirl yet? It's effing good. No, I haven't. Kind of all that. Like I've been really swamped. I'm backlogged on stuff I need to watch. It just hasn't. I've been thinking about ways to like reorganize, like put a couch in my office here because I have a TV that's not very good, and so thought about upgrading the TV. Like there's all sorts of thoughts, but it's like, do I want to get away from my family? I don't know. Life's just a big transition time. It's created a scenario where it's made it tough to watch all the stuff I need to watch or want to watch. And because I was so burned by this last season of Arrowverse shows that it just hasn't been very, it's not like I'm not rushing out to see it, even though I've heard good things. I've heard it, but then I heard people like, oh, Batgirl's really good too. And like,
yeah,
I would not say that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Similar to you, I've heard decent things about Stargirl. It's just not something that I'm really that interested in. I mean, what do you call it? Luke, gosh, why am I blanking? Yes, Luke Wilson's in that, and I remember seeing
one that made me go, what?
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? But
yeah, same. I haven't had the chance, but it is one of the shows in that kind of, because I'm like Sean, I kind of fell off, but I would probably if I had the chance, but time is a precious thing with what we do.
And so like, so many of these different things that we kind of do, we would like to do our channels. You have to watch so much stuff.
Yeah.
If that's the case, when Austin doing all these TV shows like that, like you have to watch a whole season. That's not, it's like, someone asks you, hey man, just watch and review Dark for your international audience. That's 10 hours of my time.
Yes, it is.
That is not a small ask. That is a big ask. And it's 10 hours I'm not doing something else.
Yes.
And these big rankings, like I have to watch all these ones, and some people are like, why do you do so many Marvel videos? Well, because I've watched all those movies so many times that I don't have to rewatch them every time I do one of those videos. To do this IMDb one, it takes me 3 weeks to do that. Therefore, for the 3 weeks leading up to that, I have to have something else in that space. There's a lot of things that make it really complex.
Yeah.
Hey Sean, are you excited about the NBA to start? No, I don't really follow any sports right now. So I just don't. I haven't followed the NBA or baseball, any of that stuff really for a long time. Yeah. Once again, I just don't have time. Like I do not have time. Like I work all the time. It was even like one of those sobering moments with our kid today where they're like, we don't know what day it is because they didn't realize it was over the weekend because we were both just working. We went, okay. We need to do a better job of not working all the time because I was grinding hard developing out a website for something I'm working on that I'm going to post about later today. But like I just work all the time and I just don't have time to watch everything, and I can't follow sports to know everything about movies, so it's tough.
Before we move on to the next question, I did get a notification that some news just dropped. So apparently it looks like for the 10th anniversary re-release of Inception, Warner Brothers is going to debut the first trailer for Dune and a new trailer for Wonder Woman 1984. So, and I guess an extended look at Tenet as well. So
very cool. Very cool. So
sorry,
they're doing what they can to get us back into the theaters. What's the date on the re-release? Because
I'm not entirely sure. Let me double check real quick. But I just saw that was sort of what's happening.
I'm reading Dune right now, so I'm motivated. I need some Dune in my life. I got something. Need something.
Yeah.
Super chat come in. Tyler, thoughts on Italian movie Life is Beautiful? I've actually never seen it. It's one of those movies that I know I should have seen, heard fantastic things about, obviously won a bunch of awards, but I haven't seen it. No. So either one of you have a bit more satisfying answer than my non-answer?
No. Life is Beautiful. Is that the
World War II?
Yeah. I love that movie. I think it's it's beautiful. No pun intended. And I forget the actor's name, who the main guy in there, but he's absolutely fantastic. And the crazy thing is, like, I remember when I first saw it, I watched it in a class at school. I thought it was like a really old movie. Like I thought it was like from the 50s or 60s or something like that. But no, it like came out in the 90s. I was like, what? That's wild. No, it's I love it. It's great. And on the re-release stuff, it is August 12th. Internationally ahead of like a US August 21st release.
Okay. Tony Stark, Danny Elfman's Batman score is iconic. What? I didn't say I don't like Danny Elfman's score. That sentence was in the context of when I'm in the mood to amp myself up. I have done lists where I've done my favorite scores, and I don't remember if that was on the main list or the runner-up list, but it was on there. I am in no ways criticizing Danny Elfman's Batman score. It is iconic. That is not what I was talking about, though. So when I'm in the mood to amp myself up, I listed off two very iconic scores everybody talks about, and then I brought in one, the Dark Knight Returns score, that is not talked about all that much. That was the context of me saying that, to make a contrast. I'm not attacking it. Dorito Chips Gamer, favorite George Miller film? The Road Warrior. Mr. Burke.
Mine is Fury Road by a mile. By a mile.
I don't know. That's tough because, it is. I mean, it's between Road Warrior or Fury Road. I guess I'd go Fury Road for right now.
Very cool. Very cool. CM Waters with a big old super chat. Thank you. Thank you so much. It is greatly appreciated. Just wanted to say that it's truly a blessing that casual movie fans that were previously seen as nothing more than just fans are getting more vocal in the world of film criticism. Thanks for everything you do. Thank you so much for the kind words. And it is really cool the way that the way, the barriers to entry are being lessened. And fandom is getting a voice, and I think there's a lot of positives to that. Not that I would like, I think there's great to have academic criticism. It's great to have journalistic criticism. And then I think what's cool about right now is that through blogs, through YouTube, the fandom is getting a voice too. And I think that's a more well-rounded conversation. And so I think that's all very cool. And, Austin getting, on Rotten Tomatoes is a piece of that. So, but thank you so much for the super chat. It is greatly appreciated. All right, here's what we can elaborate on a little bit more. Robert, Alex, you should talk about Batman Death in the Family trailer. So what he's talking about is that just yesterday they dropped a trailer for a new Batman animated film called Batman Death in the Family. If you don't know, back in the 80s, one of the plot lines they did was called Death in the Family, and this was where Jason Todd, who was the Robin of the time, was killed by the Joker. And so that's the death in the family storyline. And so we talked about this just 2 minutes ago, Batman Under the Red Hood, which just turns 10 2 days ago. And in that movie, basically, it starts off with the death in the family event. But they kind of followed it up 10, 15 years later with the Red Hood storyline, which was kind of a follow-up to Death in the Family. And so then some people are like, where didn't they already do this one? Like, no. That was just the opening scene to tell the Red Hood story. This is let's do Death in the Family. But the gimmick here is that I guess it's a choose your own adventure to where you can click through, you make the choices as Batman makes the choices, which I always love novelty. I think inherently, as soon as you're like, the viewer chooses the story, that's not fully storytelling. That's a game that's a story. But at the same time, I don't mind that exists. So sure, if you want to have a little game story thing, cool. I didn't fully watch the trailer. Sometimes I don't watch the trailers on these deals because I'm like, I'm going to watch that whenever it comes out. So I don't need to watch the trailer. I'd rather just experience it as fresh as I can. So I just saw some glimpses a little bit to get the vibe of it over on the Twitter with the audio off. Either one of you have some big strong opinions on that one?
I mean, it'll be cool to get like the prequel to Under the Red Hood, or not prequel, but I guess like the first part of that whole Red Hood story arc with the same vocal cast coming back, and like it looks like they're doing the same animation style. So I think that's what excites me most about the whole thing, is they're tying both of them together.
I'm definitely interested. It's difficult though. One, because I'll have to watch all of the endings to do a review, and two, it's according on how they handle it, right? We've seen similar things that Netflix did, the Black Mirror special, which I thought was pretty cool. It was well done. So if they handle it in a good way, sure. But I'm with Sean. I like my narrative to be structured with an endpoint, whether we like it or not. Right.
And it's kind of one of those ones that it's I enjoyed choose your own adventure novels growing up, but at a certain point in time, it's like you want your story to communicate themes. Like the central idea of it is like you have the A story, which is the action of it, and then the B story, which is the messaging, the character arc, the journey that they go on. Like, what does it do to them? And that's decisions that the director has. Like, I want this to end at this point in time, and therefore you have to decide. Like, they have to make those decisions to have that character arc, to have those things. And as soon as it's the viewer decides all that, that's now a visual game. It's a different thing. That I'm finding that it exists. I'm interested, but it's at a certain point in time, like, I don't know if I would call that a movie because it breaks so much from inherently what the definition of a movie is. Griffin, do you think that the audience would be the one that decides the plot of a movie, or should the storyteller decide that?
I feel like it's a cool thing to give them the option, especially, when you speak to some filmmakers and like they legitimately have multiple endings for their projects. And it's like, well, it could actually go one of these ways. And we just decided to go with this one because we felt it was the best one. But then sort of like eliminating them having to make the decision. And then it's just saying like, hey, listen, these are the multiple endings that we sort of came up with. You choose the one that you like the best. I think that's cool, and it's interactive. It is a bit gimmicky because Death in the Family is so like the reason that it's so powerful is because Batman fails. He fails to save his protege, and it completely sets up the next film, which is Under the Red Hood, and then that's another sort of emotional hurdle that he has to deal with. So I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing to do for this particular project, but maybe like an original story or
that's what struck me as odd about it. Like, this is a story that's known exclusively for its end.
Yeah,
it is famous. Like, how many people have read Death in a Family? I don't know. How many people that know about comics know the end of Death in a Family? A lot. I've never read it, but I've known the ending of it for 30 years. And it was headlines. Like, back in the day, like, even as a little kid, whenever this happened, there were like headlines in big major newspapers. Robin, and this is popular culture stuff, so I don't mind that I'm spoiling, but if you don't know anything, if you don't know the end of it, cover your ears.
Oh, come on, guys.
Robin dies. Like, that's the plot of it. And so that was headlines 33 years ago that I remember. And so the idea of turning that story, that the ending is the one thing that everybody knows, into a choose your own adventure, it's like, okay, it's kind of is an odd one to pick for that. I assume basically, however it's going to incorporate into New 52 or whatever, that a different Robin dies, and so Damian Wayne dies, or like, I'm sure it'll be something, or whatever they're gonna, I don't know how all it'll tie together, or someone else dies instead of based on your decisions. It's always a downer. That's probably not the one that ends with them at a birthday party eating cake. But
yeah,
we'll see. And a super chat come in from Andrew Hart. It's a question. I'll let Griffin run with this one. Hey guys, what do you think of the director Robert Eggers? I haven't seen The Witch. So I can't comment too much on that. I have seen the Lighthouse at the same film festival where I saw The Platform before it came out. It was actually one of the surprise screenings. So you could sign up for different movies at this deal, and they have 2 different surprise screenings. And so I showed up to one of them, and there's all sorts of rumors that it could be Dr. Sleep. It could be Zombieland 2, because Zombieland 1 had premiered at this film festival 10 years before. And then there's even a little bit of murmurs. It was very unlikely, but like Joker might make an appearance or something like that. And so we're sitting there, and then they're like, hey, we got something very exciting. I hadn't seen The Witch. And so the director walks out. The room goes wild, and I'm like, I'm the guy that doesn't know. Like, I'm just excited. Oh wow, Robert Eggers looked very cool. And then it was the Lighthouse. Like, oh yeah, the black and white movie with the Green Goblin and Batman sitting around farting together. What? Man. So I have it's one of those movies that I can respect what they were doing. It's not necessarily the way that I'm wired. It has a lot of things that kind of similarities like The Shining, and as I've said many times before, like, I'm just not that. There's a allegorical, metaphorical side to it that my brain's not fully wired that way. Yeah. How about you, Mr. Griffin, who has your picture that might tie into all this?
Yeah, I love Robert Eggers. I think The Witch is legitimately one of, if not the scariest films I've ever seen, and it unsettled me to no end when I saw it. And I love The Lighthouse as the bizarre little like sea shanty folklore tale that it is. Like it's just, it is so just weird. Like the movie, you have no idea what you're in for with that thing. You think you're getting one thing, and then it turns into something else. It's kind of like The Shining in a weird way, but it's got 2 incredible performances and the saltiest monologues ever. Like Willem Dafoe legitimately should have gotten an Oscar nomination for that film. But yeah, no, dude, I love it. And his new film with the Vikings, oh my God, it's gonna, like, he's gonna bring it. It's gonna go places. It's gonna be way out there, and it's gonna be brutal. I have a feeling it's gonna be really violent. So I am so looking forward to that.
I'll tell you what. Well, I was just going to say, it did take me a bit to come around on The Witch. I do respect it a lot more now, but I'm much more of a Lighthouse fan. Gosh, I love that movie, and I can't wait to see what. Although I would like to see him kind of divert from horror, which I think it's interesting what he's going to do next. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try and find a couple more, and then we'll close things out now that we're right about an hour. And I haven't really eaten today, so I'm probably on the verge of passing out. Went to the gym, 2-hour podcast, and everything like that. This is actually going to be something to bounce off of a little bit. Tom asked, thoughts on the Witcher spinoff. So I still haven't finished season 1 of The Witcher. I am watching it once again. I started in January, got confused, so I stopped. Watched a bunch of explainer videos to help me understand the timeline. So I started watching it again, and it's like, okay, I can follow this a little bit better now that I have a better idea which one of these take place at different time periods. But once again, I'm not watching that one with the kids. So, just showed him Lord of the Rings, followed up with The Witcher and Game of Thrones, because I'm a good parent. So I don't have strong thoughts on it. It was a big hit for Netflix, so naturally they're looking for more big hits. That's what you do. Seems like a big world that you could tell more stories. I don't know how much of the success of The Witcher is because of it's just a fantasy show that has a little bit of a Game of Thrones vibe, and how much of that is it's a fantasy show with a Game of Thrones vibe with Henry Cavill in the lead, tied specifically directly to a hit video game series. So I think if you do a prequel, I think you lose a couple of those hooks that true people are like, I've never played The Witcher, I've never read The Witcher, but I like Henry Cavill and he cuts things heads off. So I was like, okay, I want to see him get things heads off. So cool. So did you have any thoughts on it, Mr. Burke?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Game of Thrones essentially it's the same thing. It's however many years before. There's so much lore there to explore, and then just a lot of stuff they can make up because it's a big world and they can expand on that. So I think it's cool, but I need to see more of The Witcher. I enjoyed season 1, but it's so early in that show. I don't know if I'm ready for a spinoff quite yet.
Yeah. I don't remember. Did you watch The Witcher, Griffin?
I similar to you. I started it. I didn't finish it. Which it was just one of those things where it was just like I liked it. It was great fantasy fun and action, and like Henry Cavill's great, but like it was just really hard to follow and unnecessarily so. So kind of just like I was just like, I don't know.
And it's not hard to follow because the plot is like this dense, complex thing. It's just that the world building's not there. It has a big world that needs to be built, and it's more like we're just here. Let's start doing things, and let's do it out of order. Like that's a weird way to do that. Okay, do a couple of these real cool. We got one more super chat. I got a couple questions I think we can answer real quick. Everybody's favorite Zack Snyder movie. I don't know mine, so I'll let you guys pick. Sucker Punch, of course.
Oh man. It's I don't know, because it's like what I'd probably go Watchmen. I think Watchmen might be his best movie. But man, do I love Man of Steel. It's like it's so tough. It's a toss-up between those two.
I would throw into that one as well for Dawn of the Dead and 300. It's tough because they're on the one hand, all four of them have such that Zack Snyder vibe to them. They're clearly Zack Snyder films. They're very much him, but they're also do what they do so differently, and they're different types of stories. And so comparing them, and even though they have so much overlap, it feels weird to like pick a favorite with such different films that it's like, if you want like a good like high octane zombie movie, his Dawn of the Dead, like that's the go-to. And then 300, like if you just want like macho dudes, like we're going out there, we're gonna die, we're gonna stare at, like is just such a like testosterone filmed, brutal, visceral movie. It's that. Yeah. If you want a deconstruction of the superhero genre, man, Watchmen. If you want a Superman movie for the 21st century that just has some of the best Superman action we might ever get, with just some really cool stuff, fantastic sport, Man of Steel. And then there's also Sucker Punch.
Listen, there's a following for that film. Like, I think it's definitely his weakest movie for sure, but like, I guess you can't really say that he didn't like achieve what he set out to do. Like that movie is legitimately what he wanted to make, but you're right. It's so, and in so many of them are adaptations of graphic novels, but it's like each graphic novel is so different. And I'm glad you brought up Dawn of the Dead.
Even Dawn of the Dead is a remake. Like, so there's so much adapting. So it's tough to even know what to do with it.
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm excited for his new movie, Army of the Dead, I think what it's called, because it's him sort of going back to like where he started, but like as the more seasoned filmmaker that he is now. So I think, and with the cast he has assembled, I think it could be really fun.
Real quick, Austin, your favorite Zack Snyder?
Yeah, I got to go Man of Steel. It's a movie that I wouldn't have said that about when I first watched it, but it has grown on me. And that score, Sean, you talk about motivation, Hans Zimmer over and over, listening to it. So good. Yeah.
It's like legitimate, like, people are like, how do you so high energy in your videos and everything like that? Well, right before I hit record, I play Man of Steel, and I jump up and down and do jumping jacks. Then I put it on Superman, John Williams score. And I just amp myself up. Like, all right. This week I finally watched this, and today we're gonna stop and read. Like that's where that comes from. Is from amping myself up. We'll close out on this one from Marshall Boy with Super Chat. Thank you so much, greatly appreciated. 5 Samuel L. Jackson movies to take on to an island. Mine would be Endgame, Revenge of the Sith, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Incredibles, Goodfellas. I would push back on the ability to call Endgame a Samuel Jackson movie. I think that's if you want to talk about Samuel Jackson movies, I don't think you can include Endgame in that.
No,
I mean, you can do whatever you want with your list. If you're about to go to an island, I don't want to nitpick your list, but
how dare you bring Endgame? How dare you?
But does he have a line of dialogue in that film?
In Endgame, I mean, I don't
because he's at the funeral, like he's literally just
yeah.
So I think it's cheating a little bit to do that. So Pulp Fiction, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Winter Soldier. Like if you want an MCU where he's present, I think that's a strong contender. And I like Avengers more, but Winter Soldier I think is more of a him movie. I don't know, maybe it's something like that. Django Unchained. You guys say your list, and I'll come up with another one.
Okay, we got 5. Austin, you go first. I gotta think.
Yeah, Winter Soldier for sure. Django, Pulp Fiction, absolutely. I'd throw Incredibles in there. I think great part in Incredibles. And then as for that 5th one, oh gosh, Jurassic Park. I mean, does that count? No, that's a cameo. That's cameo.
That's what's tough on some of these ones because one of the things that's made his career so phenomenal is that he might be the best cinematic spice that we've ever had. You even go through these movies. Yeah. He's not the star of Pulp Fiction. He just steals every scene. He's not the star of Jurassic Park. He's just great when he shows up. He's not the star of The Incredibles, but he's a wonderful addition to it. The only MCU movie that he's kind of the star of is Captain Marvel, and he's the best thing in that movie. But one of the reasons in the MCU is that he just shows up and has 2 or 3 fantastic scenes, a couple of great lines. So he's tricky because he's such a great cinematic spice, like maybe the best spice of all time.
Yeah. I'll give you a good one. I loved his character in Kingsman. I thought he was great.
Yeah, that was a good one.
There we go.
Yeah, Kingsman's a good one.
That'll be my final
one.
Yeah. I think Kingsman for sure. Pulp Fiction.
Actually, I guess my wife is watching right now, so she just texted me to say Deep Blue Sea. To go back to
I thought for sure you were gonna say that. No.
Why did she text me? Did she tell me what she wants to watch? Oh, yeah, that's right. He's in the movie Deep Blue Sea. It has a very memorable moment. He gives a great speech.
That scene. Oh.
I don't want to say anything more about that amazing scene.
Oh God, I just watched that last night. It's so. So stupid. Pulp Fiction, Incredibles, the Kingsman, crap, what was the other? I had it. Snakes on a Plane.
Nice. That's funny.
I don't talk about this much on my channel. I don't know how I've barely ever mentioned it. When Snakes on a Plane came out, the Alamo Drafthouse locally did a competition called Blanks on a Blank. And it was like a short film festival, a short film competition where all these different teams would draw a name from a hat. And you would draw a animal, and then you would draw a vehicle or something someone can write on. And so me and my buddies, we entered into it. And so we drew wolves and a wheelchair. And so it's on the YouTube. Wolves on a wheelchair, and there's also the length for the it's the best part. The length for what you could do for the competition was 5 minutes, but then I wrote a theme song for it called "It's All for Love" that we shot a music video for. That's 5 minutes long. And so the credits for it are 5 minutes long with this music video of us singing this song. That's inspired by the song that's at the end of Commando. Actually, this little surprise for people that stuck to the end. Let me see if I pull this up. That's the great thing about the streaming software is that it's easy to do all this. Here we go.
But you might be right with Die Hard with a Vengeance there, honestly. That's probably
good.
I'd go with either that or maybe like, gosh, I don't know, Triple X or something like that. Some stupid, like, because the thing is, like, I don't want to choose an MCU movie because it's like, well, it's not really a Samuel L. Jackson movie. So,
okay. Screen share.
Let's see it.
Chrome tab.
I'm ready for Sean to get a copyright claim on his own video.
Oh, my own video. The guy's still my workout partner, so I could probably get him to drop it. I mean, see, and this is like classic Sean Chandler in the era where I had I went through my first weight transformation between when we shot the original stuff and when we shot the music video. So we shot the original stuff, I was like 137 pounds or something like that, and I have highlights and spiky hair, and I'm playing this very bizarre character that is pulled by wolves, and then there we go. You can hear this. And the song you're hearing right now is also from one of my previous bands. I'm like going deep cuts on this one.
Wow.
I really do want that margarita.
So this is another. There, it's me. There you go.
Wow.
And so that is my amazing hit right there. And the song that plays here, it's called Sweet Ether of Death. This is me screaming. So if you've ever wondered what I sound like in a punk band, there you go.
That was you, Sean?
That was me screaming.
A little bit of no effects there.
It was pretty intense. So then the end of it, here's my guitar solo. And I literally was like 40 pounds heavy by the time we did this part right here. And I wrote and recorded this whole song. So.
Wow.
And goes to my guitar solo. There we go.
Oh, man. It's so low.
Yes. Saying, this is why I have to stick around to the end of the podcast. And you look at the credits, and we're just having to repeat the same 4 games.
Oh my God. Yes, I think you need to do a video where you react to that video on your channel, because that is priceless.
Oh,
holy crap.
Really good.
It's a little bit so I run into so I've done a ton of this sorts of past stuff that would be so fun to share, and I'm totally cool embarrassing myself. The problem I run into is that not necessarily all of my friends want to be embarrassed the same way. So like one of the guys I think like writes for Spin and stuff like this, and so other teachers, and they're not as like let's all this crazy stuff we did in the past. So that's the problem I run into with all my shenanigans, because there's so many things that I've done out there that are just so bizarre and weird. So anyway, we actually had another super chat come in while I was on memory lane showing you. Like you just search for that if you want the whole thing. So all of a sudden, Wolves on a wheelchair out of the blue is going to get.
I hope it becomes a meme, Sean. We need memes from that.
I get myself in trouble like one of those guys. Like, dude, seriously, I'm trying to forget that we did that.
That's so good.
Yeah.
It's actually got it like there's so many stories that came out of that one, because I got a sword injury working on that. I actually have a right here on my finger. I still have I brought a sword that my character is actually around, a sword I bought at a gas station, and then I was just putting it in my sheath, and I went.
Wait, Sean, so you're doing your own stunts too? Like you didn't hire a double?
People's stunts too, I'm sure.
Wow.
Actually, there was actually I did all these videos because I was a youth pastor for years, and so for our retreats, I would always script out these like I had a 50-page script for one of the video series that we did for a retreat. I mean, it took me 2 months to film it and edit the whole thing.
Wow.
And it was 50 minutes long, and it was based off Inception. And there was a section in it where we had a guy that was like drinking a candle that was lit. And he had a fake beard on, and we're like, if you do that, the beard will catch on fire. I was like, oh, that's a great joke. Let's do that. but it was a student that was playing this, so we couldn't have an underage kid setting his face on fire. So I was the stunt man for a flaming beard. I was like, am I going to lose my eyebrows? Like, you do, it's great footage. So there's all sorts of amazing things out there. Like, and when you watch it, if you watch it in slow-mo, you can clearly tell it's me wearing the fake beard. But if you're just watching it, it's just like this 1 second clip of a beard going up in flames. And so fun times. Anyway, we had a super chat come in. Scott Edwards, are y'all Arrowverse fans? Have you liked all the Arrowverse events? No. Events for the next, or excited for the next one? No. What do you think of the new Batwoman casting? Don't know. So, sorry about that. We had actually just talked about this just a little bit. So I am a massive fan of early Arrowverse. Huge. I mean, I was there day one, pumped for it. Even before it was announced, there was always rumors and murmurs ever since Green Arrow showed up on Smallville. Ever since then, I'd been excited about it. And then it didn't happen with the guy that was playing it on that show. He's gone and had a fantastic career. He's on This Is Us. But then they announced they were doing it. I was pumped. I loved the tone. It kind of followed the model of Batman Year One, except played out over a season. I'm all on board for that because I love that movie. So loved that season. Loved the second season. They kicked off The Flash. Loved the first season of that. And then I just eventually the guy was over so many shows. And with all the shows, they went, okay, let's add everybody to the team. And I think they just burned through too many good plot lines, and they just got to a really bad spot. Have you liked all the crossover events? No, I mean I enjoyed the first ones initially, and then I think that they've and I've like the Elseworlds I thought was fun, but kind of wasted some of the potential. I have a ranking of all the crossovers, but I thought that in Crisis on Infinite Earths was an unbelievable letdown that just almost soured me on the entire Arrowverse. Even built into it is that they destroyed all these universes that I love, continuities that I loved. The whole first half of it was written based off of which people said yes to do a cameo. That's how they wrote it. Like Michael Rosenbaum on his podcast was like, yeah, I was up to like go see my mom in the hospital, and they called me up like, hey man, can you do Lex Luthor? If you can do Lex Luthor, we need to know right now. He's like, I mean, I'd have to see the script. Like, we haven't written the script yet. We'll write the script if you say yes. And he's like, I don't want to do that.
That's so weird.
And so he talked about it quite a bit. And then, they've had Stephen Amell on the podcast where he's likewise been like, hey, they did the death scene for my character, and I wasn't with the main cast of my own show. And they wanted to have Melissa, Supergirl, and Grant Flash leave, and they wanted, because they didn't want to keep paying them or whatever, and they wanted to hold up tennis balls and have my character die on a table while I was looking at tennis balls.
What?
I don't. And he's describing it, and you're like, these guys are way in over their head in what they're doing, and they're trying to bad. They're trying to do both 22 episode seasons while doing all this other stuff. It's just not a good idea. And so there's a lot of things I have really enjoyed. The Crisis, I don't know if it was Crisis, but Infinite or Earth X. Earth X, I thought that was the best one. I thought that one was really cool. It had some character moments as well as big spectacle and alternate world stuff, but then a bunch of really bad stuff. And what I think about the new Batwoman casting, I think the whole thing is a bit of a disaster, where they their schedule is a grind that no one in their 30s that wants to have a movie career can keep up with. If you're 24 and you get cast on one of these shows, it's like you're like set until you're in your 30s. But if you try and start that when you're married, have kids, it burns through. Like Stephen Amell had a meltdown, like literally on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast. He had a meltdown when they were recording it, and he just walked out because he was sweating. And he Michael Rosenbaum called it Stephen Amell's wife. I was like, he had a meltdown, and he basically agreed, like, yeah, Michael, you can use that. I think it's important for people to understand the stress that actors are under. But he had a meltdown based off the end of how those shows are, because they're just such a grind. And he's a guy that, why didn't he do more stuff after Arrow? Kind of gave him a bunch of fan credit.
Yeah.
I mean, he did Ninja Turtles, but it was just he was barely able to be a side character in that one thing. And then he was married and has a kid, and he's like, oh, it's 22 episodes. I have to look CW hot. Like, I just can't do it. So they hire Ruby Rose, and she's already trying to have a movie career, obviously. And clearly, I mean, they just burned through her in 1 year. It's like
Yeah.
That's the problem here.
And honestly, the quality of the work that not the actors but the creatives involved are putting in is just not worth it. It's not great. So
I watched one sequence from The Crisis. It was where the camera's just kind of going around all of the characters and they're fighting robots in the air. And I got a season 4 of The Flash, and then I just kind of had too much to do, and I said, I can't do this. I tried. I really did. It's just
it's the sort of thing that when you check it out, it highlights everything that these shows aren't very good at.
Yeah. I agree.
It's in some ways I think the good crossovers highlight everything that's good about the CW universe. Mm-hmm. But then Infinite Earths, I think, highlighted all of the big. It was a gimmick over a great story. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then in the offensive part to it is that they added, by having that be the place where Oliver died, it was some of the worst written stuff that they've done in all of these shows and all of these seasons for their Tony Stark, for the guy that kicked the whole thing off.
Yeah.
And they tried to do their endgame moment, and it was real. It soured me on the entire thing. And then the end of Arrow was somehow even worse, the final episode.
Yeah.
And then, as for the Batwoman casting, like I watched, I think 8 episodes. I really tried to give it a shot, and I was like, it's just too much about the relationship drama. It's not enough about being a superhero show. There's just too many weird things that they're doing that to prop up Batwoman, they knock down Batman like, oh, the bat suit will be perfect. When a woman's in it, like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to frame it in that way. You don't have to frame it as Batman's given up on the city and he's like, you don't have to do all of that. Just write your character interesting and we'll like your show. And so there's a lot of things that just burned me on it. And so it was Arrowverse this last year burned almost all my goodwill. I think I'm only planning on watching The Flash to close out just because I've invested a lot of time into it. Yeah. It still has some stuff that I like about it, but it's just really disheartening how much that they burned through so much goodwill so fast. Anyway, we're actually over 2 hours. This one we covered all kinds of news. Get me rant about stuff, and you guys got to see a little taste of some of my previous work that I've done before, right over there, rocking and rolling and having amazing hair in the past. So
yeah, I liked it.
There you go. Austin, where can we find you on the internet one more time?
Yeah, Austin Burke on YouTube, Letterboxd, and I also forgot to mention 3C Films and I. We do a podcast called Film Strippers. We do it about once a week right now, but we'd like to go a bit more full time. So if you have iTunes or Spotify or YouTube, check that out as well.
Griffin, where can we find you?
Yep, you can find me over on the Film Speak channel. I'll probably be going live tomorrow at 10 a.m. if you want to hang out, talk movie news and all that good stuff. And then you can find me on Twitter at Griff Schiller.
Very cool. Everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in for an eventful podcast. Thanks to everyone that sent in a question that we're able to answer, as well as a super chat. That is greatly, greatly appreciated. And keep talking movies too much.